Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
No, Mr. Yates, we're exhausted. I think this whole thing now has come to a final end. We white people have realized that you black people just really hate us. This isn't white people coming down on you guys. This is black people just really hating the whites. Face it. You want us to face things? We've been facing them since the Civil War when thousands of our people died for you. That was never enough. I don't know why you guys don't go back to Africa. I raised a black child myself. I thought this was over with. We got a black president. We've done everything. You got black movie stars. You got getting them awards even when they don't deserve them. You got black football players. You got the entertainment world. You guys have probably bankrupted Detroit and about to bankrupt all the other states besides the illegal immigrants. So you've done a fundamental injustice to our country. Instead of having your kids go to school, they are all dropping out of high school. If it matters, get worse. The more that we give you and say, okay, we love you, the more love we shine on you, the more that you get. You never, never, never show any progress. As far as being in an elevator in a parking lot, I always click my door when I see somebody coming, even if it's a woman. And in an elevator, I feel very uncomfortable with whomever I am. So obviously the president has the paranoia that you all share and think you're the only ones gone through that. When I go into Mace, you guys now have really divided our country. And Treva, if you've talked to his principal in the police records, he was a hoodlum. Go look into it, all right? He was looking for an illegal gun on that cell phone. If Mr. Zimmerman had not had a gun, he'd probably be dead today. I was talking about Trayvon. He wasn't a good boy. You think they sent somebody from Miami to Sanford because they did a little pot? Look into it. That's why his cell phone was kept out of the court, because they didn't want people to know about him. He was involved in burglaries. He was looking in windows. You look at the police records of Zimmerman, he was looking in windows walking along. He wasn't just going home. He had 4 minutes to go home, and he didn't. We teach our children that when there's somebody walking after them or harassing them, leave. Don't confront them. But he confronted George, and he sucker punched him, okay? That's why he had the bloody nose, okay? Get it? When there's somebody following you, like they used to follow my own boy because he looked like John Lennon, and they used to harass him, he used to say, Mom, I really got frightened. But I said, Steve, that's okay. Run home. Don't confront them. And he got a lot of that. And a lot of us get that all the time. My other son was beat up by 4 black cops in L.A. The car was torn apart. He was working for Civil Air Patrol. He was only 16. We just got him a car to go to school because I couldn't drive him anymore. There's all kind of injustices done to white people. Every day, all the time. Look in 2008 when the banks went bankrupt, when the banks all went under. Who do you think suffered for that? White-collar workers that were innocent are in jail because of the wrong legal advice that they got. There's articles written about that in a lot of newspapers. Did Bush go to jail? Did Geithner go to jail? No. Innocent white people, but we didn't run out and demonstrate, and we didn't cause all this division in the country. All these things you guys do, we've had to, and we have it on a daily basis. We all get profiled. I haven't seen not one black person stick up for Zimmerman or say that he was doing the community a service. He went to prom with a black woman, whether you know it or not, and he mentors black children. He has black relatives, his grandfather. You know, you people, we are exhausted. We are exhausted. I don't know a person around that hasn't been doing things or has done things for the black people. I was the head of the committee in New York where I take black children and put them in houses for the summer. So all of us have done something. Has it helped? No. This is what we get. Hatred spit at us, slaps in our faces for everything we've done. Well, I guess maybe you'll notice the difference now, because I think we're all just fed up with it, okay? We're all fed up with it. Nothing that we've done has helped. Look at the black youth today. They don't even want to go to high school. So nothing works. And Africa needs a lot of help. How come you guys don't go help your own people? Everybody does that I know. When your country's in trouble, you go back and help out. I don't see any black youth or any black people going back to Africa and helping out the situation there. Do you? I don't see anybody making some kind of peace thing, Core, to go to Africa and help out. You're needed there, okay? Because we're exhausted. Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't expect anything more, okay? Because there isn't anything more we can give you. We're all bleeding from it, okay? The only thing we've gotten in return is bankrupt cities and a lot of criminal effect and a lot of hatred towards whites. That's what you guys have done. This has really shocked me. I'm surprised at it. I am stunned at it. I can't believe I campaigned.
To respond or forward, press 1. To delete, press star D. No more messages.
Meanwhile, white people are very serious about playing hardball against us. And this hardball is called genocide.
Context of white supremacy. Justice, Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Monday, July 22nd, 2013. So I have been told. The audio clip that you heard at the beginning of the broadcast, one of our former guests, Sister Delisha, she posted it on my Facebook page earlier in the day. All I can really say is white people have climbed. This is like a whole new level of tacky, racist clowning around the Zimmerman verdict and what has been on display for about a week or so now. White people have really showed out. All we would need is some elephants, ringmaster, flying trapeze act, and we would have the circus in town. You can read, I think, if I'm understanding it, because I saw this one a little bit late, but if I'm understanding it correctly, all of this started with Mr. Yates, who is a black male. I think he went on Clinton Yates, full name, black male. Apparently he was on CNN. White people have had wall-to-wall coverage of the aftermath and rallies and blah, 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 and everything else that has happened since Mr. Zimmerman's acquittal. Apparently he saved a person from a truck today. That's what they said. He pulled someone out from under a truck. They want him to run for president. It is just, that's all I can really say is, I mean, this is racial theater, whole new level of racial theater. Anywho, so Mr. Clinton, black male, was on CNN apparently over the last 48 hours, gave his views on the verdict, racism, white supremacy. Fine. He finishes, and this white woman apparently calls him up to share her views, her disgust with him and President Obama. Phenomenal little chunk of audio. He did the correct thing, in my opinion. That's what you should do when you have white people. I think we had some of our other listeners. There were some white women, which I always think is important to highlight so we can get away from that. The man is keeping us down. It was white women, more than one. They were out. It looks like there was some sort of counter rally or, these are white people racists going out and saying, Trayvon got what he deserved. Thank God for that bullet and etc. So this white woman is out. She's got this huge sign, we're racist and proud. And I said, this is the sort of thing don't get upset about. You just want to take a photograph, put that in the record book. This sort of thing makes it very easy to identify what is going on, to grasp what's happening on the planet. Why did the verdict turn out the way it did? What happened to Oscar Grant? Why did that verdict turn out the way it did? Johann Messerly getting off with very little time. Why that happened the way it did, 3,000 miles away from Florida. People acting like this only happens in Florida. Terrence Franklin up in Minnesota, didn't even hear about him. Cody Ingham down in Texas, didn't even hear about him. Getting a much clearer understanding of why things happen. And persecution complex. I think I had been saying that before about white people feeling that they are the victims. I think you heard a lot of that. Just saying, we're bleeding. I mean, the words that she was using, we're bleeding. My black child cowbell, that was Sister Delisha. She asked, what questions would you ask a white person who's making statements like that? And I said, sometimes you don't need to respond. I think Mr. Edward Williams with counter-racism.com, I think he said that in one of the times he was a guest on the program. Someone asked, what do you say when white people are making these sorts of racist comments? And he said, sometimes you don't need to say anything. She didn't ask any questions. She just wanted to get her views out. In my view, making it plain, making it easy to see, oh, okay, this sounds like a white woman who is dedicated to the system of white supremacy. Sometimes you don't need to do anything but press record. Wish it had been a little bit more time on the tape. Sounded like she had a little bit more she wanted to get off her chest before she concluded. And just let it roll. If I had asked any questions, it would have went directly to her non-white offspring. And what should be done? It sounds like she was saying she wants black people out. She wants the Abraham Lincoln solution. Just put them back on the continent. That's what she wants for this area of the world. No black people. You could ask her about that, but I would be more curious about her potentially non-white offspring. Does she want him back in Africa? What are his thoughts on the Zimmerman verdict? Is he one of those shiftless, no-good Negroes who's not doing anything, not helping out black people on the continent? She was speaking as if the Africa was a country. I thought that was interesting, too. But, yeah, lots of this sort of thing. I would just encourage and remind folks, you probably don't want to get inundated with that sort of messaging, just sitting around watching that and complaining, throwing stuff at the screen all day long, because I feel like it's just been a lot of that. And I think it's just to encourage and to promote black people feeling bad, outraged, angry, depressed, to get us to be very emotional and to not just, hey, this is racism, white supremacy. She's doing what she's supposed to do. Offspring, you see? This is white women. This is why you want to be suspicious, because you have many, 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 many white people. Most white people, they are in agreement with her. They might not come out and say that publicly. I suspect Timothy and many other white people would have no problem coming out and saying, oh, my God, this is disgraceful. She doesn't speak for me. Doing her the way they did Juror B37, throw her under the bus, say, oh, my God, she's some trifling Klan member. She doesn't speak for us. This disgraceful old white woman, she just has antiquated views. No. Well, exactly what Mr. John King said when he visited us last week. His wife, he said his wife, she might not come out and picket, get on a radio program and publicly express her views, but she's in agreement. I would say 99.99% of white people, they probably will not come out and say it. They wouldn't say anything similar to what the white woman on the recording said, but I'm sure they are in agreement. That's what racism, white supremacy is supposed to be about. That's what it means to be a white person. Mr. Yates also wrote an article related to the audio clip. He uploaded the recording, which I think is phenomenal counter-racism, and then he wrote an article just explaining the genesis, what he was talking about when he was on CNN, and then the response from this white woman, and I'm sure others. If you check the Huffington Post, I'm sure it's more than that now, but President Obama, when he gave his talk on Friday, there were close to 500,000 comments, many of them sounding very similar to what that woman said on the recording. I checked on Saturday. It's been 2 days. It's probably closer to 1 million by now. At any rate, I will give myself a moment to dial our guest again, see if we can get him on for the broadcast. I will take a couple minutes to play a different segment of audio. This was pretty disgusting as well. This one tried my patience. I am human. I'm a victim of racism. This one also tried my patience. Dr. Cornel West, he is a victim of racism, and there should be a cowbell. I'm just not doing it because I had to read. But cowbell, Dr. Cornel West, He is a victim of racism, and I suspected this was going to happen. I think I was saying that on Friday. As soon as President Obama, anytime he opens his mouth to talk about racism, you can expect a tsunami of trifling, terroristic white people. We did not put that nigger in the White House. Those white people, the most powerful white people who are responsible for him being there, we did not put that nigger in the White House to come out and talk about racism, white supremacy. We put him there to make it easier for us to manage the plantation. So I expected a lot of white people to come out and bash him, and I expected a lot of showcasing Clarence Pendleton, ghostwriting, getting non-white people to come out and bash him, and I'd already seen that. Yesterday on Meet the Press, they had 5 black people. It was a white host and 5 black people. I've never seen that many black people on Meet the Press. I don't watch Meet the Press all the time, but I have seen it before. I might have missed, but that seemed very unusual to me to have that many melanated folks on Meet the Press talking about racism, and half of the folks on the panel were criticizing other victims of racism. Now, I will say for the most part, they were very courteous. I have seen much worse conduct from victims over the past week or what have you. For the most part, there was not a lot of interrupting and shouting and what have you. They calmly allowed one another to speak. They weren't really doing a lot of bickering amongst each other. Most of it, the few people who did disagree and what have you, they were directing their disagreements at President Obama. So it was very cordial. They did a very good job of not, fussing and just making it a minstrel show for the white person that was present. But still, a lot of it was focused on, what do you think about what President Obama said? He didn't say anything good, did he? He should have said something. It was that sort of thing. Amy Goodman, again, whole different level of clowning today with Amy Goodman. Now, I wrote about this on my Facebook page. I wrote about it before I'd even watched it. Just when I clicked on the page to see what they were talking about today, as soon as I saw Dr. West and then mention President Obama, I knew where this was going. And they've done this before. I don't know how many times Dr. West is a regular guest on Amy Goodman's show. Amy Goodman is a guest on his show. Racism, white supremacy. This is what domination looks like. I'll play the other audio clip. This is from Democracy Now!'s program from earlier today, where they were talking about what President Obama had to say on Friday. All I can reiterate is that I cannot stand Amy Goodman. I hate her. I feel like she is just one of the most refined racists on the planet. Tons of non-white people love her and think she's great. They talk about racism. I think once you get a better understanding of racism, white supremacy, and you pay attention to the way she manages her program, particularly when they have non-white guests on and what they talk about. If folks remember the segment that they did a couple weeks back where they had The New Black, where they got a black female who used to work at Democracy Now! They pointed that out in the piece, and then they devoted about 20 minutes to talking about how homophobic black people are and how black people are not accepting of so-called black homosexuals or black lesbians and make it so hard on black gay people. They devoted about 20 minutes to talking about this, and this was within the last 30 days. We'll play the short segment. I'll make the call, see if we have our guest. Hang tight. Context of white supremacy. We will be right back. Actually, need 1 second. I forgot I hadn't even loaded the clip yet. This is fresh off the press. I just watched this a couple hours ago. Let's see here. All right. And if folks remember when we did the study session on President Obama's autobiography, Dreams from My Father, I sprinkled in some of the clips because, like I said, this happens on a pretty regular basis where she will get, and I'm talking about Amy Goodman, racist suspect, she will have Dr. West on, or she will have Tavis Smiley, or she'll have another non-white person on just to bash on President Obama. She's so slick, she won't even say anything. A lot of times she'll just get them on and she'll ask her question or what have you, and she'll hit her mute button. She'll just sit back and let them roll, say whatever they want to say, talk crazy, call names, anything they want to do. I remember she had them on at the same time, Dr. West and Mr. Smiley, and she was bringing up this anecdote. She said Harry Belafonte was talking to President Obama, and she said that President Obama said to Mr. Belafonte, hey, you and Dr. West, you all are taking it so hard on me. Why don't you cut me a little slack? And she said that Harry Belafonte told him, How do you know that we're not cutting you slack? And she's, that was so, I hate her. I hate her. I hate her. Here we go. Got the sound clip. We'll go ahead and get this, and I'll try our guest. Context of white supremacy.
In the aftermath of the Zimmerman verdict and the mass protests around the country, we turn right now to Dr. C.O.W.S., professor at Union Theological Seminary, author of numerous books, co-host of the radio show Smiley and West with Tavis Smiley. Together, they wrote the book The Rich and the Rest of Us, a Poverty Manifesto, among C.O.W.S.'s other books. Professor C.O.W.S., President Obama surprised not only the press room at the White House, but the nation, I think, on Friday in his first public remarks following the George Zimmerman acquittal. What are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I think we have to acknowledge that President Obama has very little moral authority at this point. Because we know anybody who tries to rationalize the killing of innocent people is a criminal. George Zimmerman is a criminal. But President Obama is a global George Zimmerman because he tries to rationalize the killing of innocent children, 221 so far, in the name of self-defense. So that there's actually parallels here. In Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen. So when he comes to talk about the killing of an innocent person, you say, well, wait a minute, what kind of moral authority are you bringing? You've got $2 million bounty on Sister Assata Shakur. She's innocent, but you are pressing that intensely. Will you press for the justice of Trayvon Martin in the same way you press for the prosecution of Brother Bradley Manning and Brother Edward Snowden? So you begin to see the hypocrisy. Then he tells stories about racial profiling. They're moving, sentimental stories, what Brother Kendall Thomas called racial moralism, very sentimental. But then Ray Kelly, major candidate for Department of Homeland Security, he's the poster child of racial profiling. You know, Brother Carl Dix and any of us went to jail under Ray Kelly. Why? Because he racially profiled millions of young black and brown brothers. So on the one hand, you get these stories.
Ray Kelly, the former police chief of New York City. That's right.
And yet you get these bringing into his circle.
The current one.
And in fact, he even says Ray Kelly expresses his values. Ray Kelly is a magnificent police commissioner. How are you going to say that when the brothers reinforce and stop and frisk? So the contradictions become so overwhelming here.
But President Obama, speaking about his own life experience, going from saying Trayvon Martin could have been my child to Trayvon Martin could have been me.
Oh no, that's beautiful. That's an identification. The question is, will that identification hide and conceal the fact there's a criminal justice system in place that has nearly destroyed 2 generations of very precious, poor, black and brown brothers? He hasn't said a mumbling word until now. 5 years in office and can't say a word about a new Jim Crow. And at the same time, I think we have to recognize that he has been able to hide and conceal that criminalizing of the black poor as what I call the re-niggerizing of the black professional class. You've got these black leaders on the Obama plantation, won't say a criminal word about the master in the big house, will only try to tame the field folk so that they're not critical of the master in the big house. That's why I think even Brother Sharpton's going to be in trouble. Why? Because he has unleashed, and I agree with him, the rage, and the rage is always on the road to self-determination, but the rage is going to hit up against a stone wall. Why? Because Obama and Holder, will they come through at the federal level for Trayvon Martin? We hope so. Don't hold your breath. And when they don't, they're going to have to somehow contain that rage. And containing that rage, there's going to be many people say, no, we see this president is not serious about decriminalizing of poor people. We've got a black leadership that is deferential to Obama, that is subservient to Obama, and that's what niggerizing is. You keep folks so scared, you keep folks so intimidated. You can give them money, assets, but they're still scared, and as long as you're scared, you're on the plantation.
That's in the word. That's in the word, God. Man, it's nothing I can even say. It's nothing I can even say. He said what he said. And I hate Amy Goodman. I will say that all day long. The person who is most to blame for that is Amy Goodman, racist suspect. Most to blame. I wouldn't care what any non-white person had to say on that program. Whatever they say, I am attributing it to Amy Goodman. If we were not in a system of racism, white supremacy, I wouldn't take that stance. But as long as that's the case, white people are responsible for anything that gets said on any of these programs. Non-white person, white person, you. It's you, Helen. It's you, Amy Goodman, that are going to take the blame for any of those statements that get made. You decide who gets to be a guest on your program. She didn't make any time to get Neely Fuller Jr., Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Claude Anderson. It's a number of non-white people she could have got on the program to share their views about racism, white supremacy. You just want to keep bringing on victims of white supremacy to bash other victims. That's your fault. I will say it's very hard for me to hear brother being attached to white people. I did have to take my headphones off for a moment on the brother Snowden. That's another reason, if you needed reason, 6,529,000 why I do not want to be called brother, because it ends up getting applied to white people too, invariably. If it was just going to be, we're just going to be calling other black people brother, that still would not sense it. But then when it leaks out and now we're called brother Goodman, sister Goodman, no thank you. I don't want to be called brother either. Moving forward. I'll try our guest one more time, see if we will have him on the program. Might have been some issues on the plantation down in California, but we will try one more time. Forgive the ringing.
Yeah.
Greetings. Is this Mr. J.R. Valrey?
Who's speaking?
This is Gus. I was calling for the radio broadcast.
Yeah, this is J.R.
Okay. I emailed. Are you still okay for the interview this evening?
We're supposed to do an interview? I don't even remember. Remind me? I mean, it's good, though. Who are you? Tell me again.
With the C.O.W.S radio program, I think we spoke about a week and a half ago about doing the broadcast today, the 22nd at 5. I sent you an email yesterday just to confirm.
Oh, I haven't been on email. Excuse me. Well, we could do it. Let's do it.
Right on. We're live on the air. Just called in, so we're live now. I'll go ahead and get rolling. Did you need a moment to get situated or anything?
So this is for C.O.W.S?
No, the name of our program is the C.O.W.S. It's an acronym for context.
Oh, yeah, it's the internet one. I remember. Okay.
All right.
Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's go.
Cool in the gang. For folks who have listening in, this might be your first time. I guess I'll go ahead and give them the introduction I was going to set up anyway. For folks who are listening in, we have had before on the program, we've referenced great website y'all can check out for constructive information on racism, white supremacy. Especially, we have a lot of California listeners. sfbayview.com. sfbayview.com. We've had Dr. Willie Ratcliffe guest on the program before. Matter of fact, it was right after Kenneth Harding Jr. Was shot and killed and allowed to bleed to death in the street. He came on the program and we discussed what was happening around that issue. That was back 2011. At any rate, I was checking the site, and I saw a black male who hosts a radio broadcast on KPFA down in Bay Area, California, Block Report Radio, where this black male had been suspended for 4 months and counting as a result of him expressing his views about racism, white supremacy at the KPFA station. The matter was supposed to be under investigation, was still pending. The thing that really cinched it, where I thought this would be phenomenal to get more of his views, our guest had made an effort to request time to do a broadcast highlighting the prisoner strike in California, prisoner hunger strike in California for this month. He had requested 3.5 hours to inform California citizens about the gruesome conditions in the penitentiary system in California. The racist white supremacists who control the station did not respond. Comparison, contrast, Mr. Fuller talks about justice. You have to do comparison. I suspect white people went and requested 10.5 hours to talk about the gay pride march down in California and LGBTQ issues, and they got 10.5 hours to discuss those matters. 3.5 hours, 10.5 hours. Major problem, I would say. Real pleasure to have him on the program. In addition to hosting the radio broadcast, he also writes and just does a wealth of constructive journalism, all focused on racism, white supremacy. Our guest joining us live from the Bay Area, Mr. J.R. Valrey. Mr. Valrey, you can hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. For folks out there, this might be their first time hearing from you. Any information about yourself you think listeners should know?
Yes, I'm a journalist with the San Francisco Bayview, but also with Block Reporter Radio, blockreporterradio.com. People can see my website, but I also work on the SF Bayview website. You know, we do more like political type journalism. Yeah, so that's what we that's what we're about. We're about people's radio. And, you know, we represent for the people, really. So, yeah. Check us out.
sfbayview.com. You are a black male, just for folks who haven't seen you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This program, we've concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. The definition I use is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think that such a system exists, and do you think that's an accurate definition?
Yeah, I agree.
Make it plain.
Yes, I agree.
Outstanding. You grew up in the Bay Area, is that accurate?
Yeah, Oakland, California, and surrounding areas.
Okay. At what age did you get active in writing, focusing on racism, white supremacy as a problem?
Well, organizing and writing at the age of 17, which was about 17, 8, 9, which was 18 years ago. So, you know, I've been doing this for a decade, about 2 decades.
Wow. Did they have... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's still going strong.
Did they have programs that targeted younger children growing up in the Oakland area to try to get them involved in either journalism type programs, media programs? Did they have something like that? Was that?
Well, they had programs like Youth Radio, programs like Youth Outlook, which were nonprofits. Pretty good journalism programs. I learned a lot from, but you know, there's not a lot of black people in the black and brown people that was able to take advantage of it. I mean, it might be 15 of us chosen from the whole Bay Area, so it wasn't sufficient to what was needed, but I'm thankful for it because I benefited from it.
You said when you went through the program, what percentage of the participants were not white?
Well, it was supposed to be a people of color program, so about 75% wasn't white. You know,
okay.
About 75% was, you know, other, black, brown, and other. But I mean, in terms of how many people in general versus how many people are in the Bay Area, it's not a real sufficient number. You know, of young people. We can't say that it's a journalism program and say that, you know, the Bay Area is benefiting. I mean, if 15 people benefit, I guess that's good. At the same time, I mean, there's thousands of children out here that need something to do constructively, and that would be interested in writing and represent their community. So.
Absolutely. Just the history. I know we have listeners who have not been to California. The Bay Area, I think, has a pretty rich tradition with the Panthers and all the work that they did with regards to fighting against racism, white supremacy. Is that something that your parents or other folks, older elders in the area?
But not my parents, but the spirit of it is very strong out here. I was definitely influenced mentally by their writing. Also by them in particular. There's a lot of Panthers that still organize in the Bay Area on different issues. A lot of them are with All of Us or None, which is an organization that's back in the California prison hunger strike that's going on right now. Some of them organize around issues like political prisoners, Mumia Abu Jamal, Imam Jamil Alameen, otherwise known as H. Rap Brown. So I was definitely greatly influenced by them, as well as different people that was involved in the prison movement, that work with people like George Jackson. So between those two factors, I learned a lot out here in the Bay, out here in Oakland.
Absolutely. Before I get with the details with KPFA, I just wanted to ask, because with everything that's been going on about Trayvon Martin, and rightfully so, people feeling disgusted with everything that's gone down, I've reminded folks this is not the sort of thing that is a one-time incident. This is not anomalous. Just with those two incidents, do you remember activities that were happening in Oakland around either the Oscar Grant situation or even Kenneth Harding Jr. more recently?
I'm stopping it. Yes, Kenneth Harding Jr., Oscar Grant, and Trayvon Martin were definitely represented for. Excuse me 1 second. Thank you, y'all. They were definitely represented for. And please hold 1 more second. Yeah, all right. So, in the Oscar Grant situation, I actually was locked up for the rebellion. They accused me of burning up stuff when I actually didn't burn up anything. And so I was actually a journalist covering it. They didn't want it covered from the people's perspective. And so, rebellions were going down for the people who didn't see the rebellions on television. A number of buildings burned up in downtown, and that is also what happened with Occupy, and that's also what happened with Trayvon Martin. Most recently, there was about 3 or 4 different rebellions. So, Oakland, I think Tupac said it best when he said we'll burn this B up if you get us pissed. So, I think that's what happened.
I know with some of the photographs that I saw online in Oakland specifically following the verdict with Trayvon Martin, it looked like it was white people that were out doing some of the damage. Is that you? I mean, you're in the area. You saw that as well?
Yeah. I mean, it was white people doing it, but it was also the hood doing it. I mean, what it was trying to do was turn black people against rebelling like that. So what they did was highlight a lot of white people that were doing it, but white people were involved. But East and West Oakland was also involved. And that didn't get highlighted so they can cause division with white people who came in the area. And they were actually, I would say, doing their own thing. We wasn't necessarily working in the same organizations or working with the same formations, but we were, they were fighting against the system that they feel were that they feel represented in an unjust manner, and they felt that, they wanted to get down too. And me personally, I don't have a problem with that. I think that it's important to ask the question, do you want the kind of white people that will tear up downtown for Trayvon Martin, or do you want the kind of white people that will oppose and go for Zimmerman? So, I mean, I think if we look at the situation like that, then you'll see it from the perspective that many of us in the streets of East and West Oakland, we will see it how we see it.
Given the history, when people say, white people are master deceivers, there seems to be a lot of evidence that at times either white people with FBI or other intelligence agencies, that they have fabricated riots or looting scenarios where they made it look like there was some sort of disobedience going on, and actually they were just paying or getting these people to go out and do these things so that they could then accuse other folks of being criminals and going out here and just destroying property and what have you. Did you have any suspicion that, hey, this could be something where these white people are going out to do this just so that black people get blamed for whatever crimes they commit?
Well, I think that that's not really the tactic that the media is really using and the police are really using. What they're trying to do is divide the black people from the white people, and so they're showing the white people burning it up, and they're saying they're burning up your community. But the reality of it is that we are not hired in downtown. We don't own a majority anywhere near a large percentage of the businesses downtown, and so really they're tearing up their community. How many downtowns do black people run around the nation is what we need to ask ourselves when we look at the rebellions that was happening. I'm sure there could have been agents involved. I'm not going to say that there wasn't agents involved. I'm sure that the system is going to implant their agents, but there's also people, black and white, that I've known to have gotten down with Oscar Grant, who have gotten down with Kenneth Harding, gotten down with Raheem Brown and Derek Jones, other victims of police terrorism, whose cases didn't get as highlighted. So, I mean, the movement is really not super, super big, and I'm not really saying that, we're in the same organization, but if you've been out here long enough, you know who's who and what's what, and you know what's weird, and if they can't really account for him, who is this guy? And I think that, you know, if you do a scientific study or look at what is happening, what is gaining, and what's the product of whoever you're examining, black or white, because there was actually a black agent that was involved in the Oscar Grant situation where he was trying to get people caught up in cases with a lot of time. Fortunately, he didn't succeed before we exposed him. But we look at people's actions in terms of when it comes to rebelling in the streets, straight up. I mean, we have, again, black formations, and there's brown formations also out here. And there's also nonprofit formations that I'm not really associated with. But, you know, I kind of agree with you, and then I kind of disagree in the sense that I don't think that the emphasis of this interview should be on some white anarchists that was rebelling, because honestly, they was in the minority.
Okay. Again, I guess joining us live from the Bay Area, Mr. J.R. Valrey. Can you tell our listening audience how long you've been hosting Block Report Radio at KPFA?
I've been hosting Block Report Radio at KPFA for about 13 years, but it has graduated from being a segment on other people's show to being a prime time show for about 2 years, and then we were suspended, so we really were only able to use about a year and a half of that time within the last 2 years that we were a primetime show. Right now we're under investigation, and so I don't know. It's a whistleblower situation where we called out racism and we called out the issues, and now we're the problem because we called out the issues. So, you know, we try to give names to the situation that we're facing and the people that we're facing. So one of the common names or people that we're facing is the White Citizens Council of KPFA. For those people who don't know historically what a White Citizens Council is, a White Citizens Council can be seen as almost like the media wing of the Klan. Their job is to control the narrative and to control black people's voice. Black and other peoples, but I'm speaking specifically for the black community, the African community. Its job is to control our voice in the media, so that we don't necessarily get it. People in the media, watching the media, don't get an authentic voice. They get a controlled voice or don't get a voice at all from the community. They get these translator, newscaster types. So that's what's going on in KPFA. They're off because we're going at it. Some people would say, well, it's not a black-owned station. Why are you going at it? Because we recognize that it's 59,000 watts, and 59,000 watts is very hard to come by. On the market, they can get $3 or $4 million for the station, and, you know, we don't have, unfortunately, we do have people with the means in the area, but we don't have people with the mental means in the area that can see the value in that. So unfortunately, there is a black station in San Francisco, but it doesn't transmit to the whole Bay Area. I live in Oakland, and so it doesn't get out here. But that's KPOO. Please support it. Please check it out on the internet, kpoo.com. Yeah.
There were 2 incidents that you've written about with regards to what the white people at KPFA, racist suspects, the reason they're giving as to why you were suspended. The first one involves, or I guess you can set it up for listeners, them saying that you contributed to a hostile work environment. Put that in quotes because that's the word that they use, a hostile work environment.
Right, a hostile work environment. Basically, how I see it being defined is you can't call us on our BS, you know, such as the Trayvon Martin. They gave white people equal access to the Trayvon Martin. So basically, half of everybody who reported on Trayvon Martin at KPFA through the specials was white, and the other half was black and other. So black people were not the majority of the narrative. White people were. You know, they dictated what questions were asked and who was interviewed. And, I mean, to be very honest, they didn't even talk to the people in the streets because they were also part of the scheme to try to divide what was happening with the white people that was burning up downtown from the hood that was making a justified statement also. So, you know, does that answer the question?
It does, but I wanted to push back a little bit for folks out there who might say, well, wait a minute, JR, I don't really see a problem with that. If half of the coverage at KPFA on Trayvon Martin was from white people and the other half was from non-white people, as long as they're doing quality reporting, what's the big deal? Why is that a problem, even if it's a white person? And
one, if we just look at pure numbers, white people aren't the majority, one. But the most important point is that it's an African issue. It's a black issue. It's something that young black males face on an everyday basis. Trayvon Martin is just the one who got a lot of media attention, and we as the African community see this as a symbol as to what is happening locally all over this country, and I would say even all over the world. So, you know, I think that's why.
What was your relationship with racist suspect, former interim general manager Andrew Phillips?
Well, our relationship, we really didn't have a relationship. I mean, basically, he was a manager who came in and he acted like he was, you know, it was a wolf in sheep's clothing. He came with his hand out, wanted to shake hands, and then, you know, like so many others, but we watched his actions, so it's not as if we were caught by surprise. We watched his actions, and we saw the turn taking place. And so Andrew Phillips was the person who suspended me. He was the person who sided with the White Citizens Council. He was the person who we got fired. He is no longer the manager of KPFA because one of the internal investigations, KPFA had to admit to racism, and in that admission, they fired Andrew Phillips and brought in another racist, Richard Porodsky, who is another racist that we're battling right now. We're about to have a rally a week from today, about exposing the racism at KPFA, because my issue is one of many issues at KPFA. The Trayvon Martin issue was one of many issues that were African issues that African people, black people, were not allowed to cover. Another huge issue that's going on right now is the California prison hunger strike. And culturally, another big issue that is going on is the Fruitvale Station, which is the movie about Oscar Grant that is in theaters right now by a Bay Area writer
director by the name of Ryan Coogler. So, support it. Go check it out. But, KPFA is doing a terrible job in black broadcasters. So what it's going to take is the community as well as more black broadcasters within the walls of KPFA standing up. And the tactic that we are employing is that we are urging the community to call or email people like Davey D, who you can get his information from DaveyD.com. There's Ricky Vincent with the History of Funk. He has a show, pretty famous for doing the funk book. He has a show on there. There's a number of people on KPFA. You can go down the list, see who fits your taste, but pressure them. And also you can go to our Facebook, Block Report Radio, and you can see a list of some of the issues that were named on this show, but some of the other issues, such as there's a woman by the name of Veronica Faison, who is basically the program director, but they don't want to call her that. They want to call her the general manager, the assistant to the general manager, where she does everything a program director does, but she doesn't get the pay that a program director gets because they're trying to save that for somebody white, and they're shaving money off the top for whatever reason, but they're not trying to pay the black woman what they paid the white woman that occupied that seat. They don't even want to give her the position at all, but she is doing the work, so it should be equal work for equal pay. And so, that's another issue that's going on. I mentioned the hunger strike not getting sufficient coverage, as well as them putting white broadcasters. And we all know that the prison system is filled with black people primarily, and second to black people is brown people. And so how would if you're such a progressive station, how would the broadcast be dominated by white people who many have never been locked up? Many of them have never been targeted. None of them have been racially profiled police and been in some of these situations. None of them have been to prison and seen the conditions and forced to live in the conditions, and the ones that have been to prison have gotten even preferential treatment and white skin privilege in jail. So, that's just some of the issues that we're doing at KPFA.
To your knowledge, in the time that you've been there, has any other paid or unpaid staff member at KPFA been suspended for 4 months or more?
No, actually it's been 5 months right now.
Wow.
And so, no, they haven't. There has been no other person suspended for 5 months. I wasn't, they said I was suspended for a hostile work environment, but like I said, it was, what was a hostile work environment? Letting it be known after you guys refused to do anything about what was going on at the station. Some of those issues. Another time, one of the Asian managers tried to provoke me to hit him and punch him in his face when he erased one of my interviews that was coming live from Africa, live from the Congo, reporting on the genocide that's going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo right this second, so that people can have coltan that operates electronics and everything that we use electronic. So I was doing a report on that. He came in and erased it because I was 5 minutes coming out late, and he tried to provoke. They have this thing where they think black people can't control themselves, and to be very honest, I was very close to punching him in his face, but I had to look at what exactly was at hand right here. Were we going to give up these 59,000 watts for me to punch him in his face, or are we going with the 59,000 watts? So at that moment, I chose to go with the 59,000 watts. We reported it. Nobody to this day has said anything about it. Andrew Phillips refused to address it, so we went over his head to his manager, and that was one of the issues he got fired about. But Pacifica, which is the parent station of KPFA, the network that KPFA belongs to, they refused to even deal with it. They fired Andrew Phillips, but that still doesn't solve the issue. Andrew Phillips was the supervisor of the person who actually needed to get punished and was not punished. Yet, if somebody black that was a broadcaster had done anything, there was a woman by the name of Nadra Foster who was a broadcaster in 2008 who was hogtied out of KPFA by the Berkeley Police Department after a manager, a white Latina one manager at KPFA claimed that she was a trespasser, although she had been a volunteer for over 11 years, and at one point had a primetime show that went for like 7 years. So KPFA listeners, as well as people within the station, knew who she was. Again, the name is Nadra Foster, and yes, they basically, one manager didn't like her and said that she was a trespasser, and basically, had her beat and hogtied, and her arm was paralyzed, and they used high-powered lawyers, so she never received any financial compensation. Only a small number of broadcasters, black and otherwise, came out in support of her. I was one of the people who did, and there was a few others, but the number was very low. And, because KPFA, a lot of the people that they employ are Uncle Toms or Auntie Toms, and that's the kind of black people that they want surrounding 59,000 watts, because they want to keep a real authentic black voice for self-determination out, because it may wake some people up. And so, that pretty much summarizes some of the stuff that's going on at KPFA.
You said, I'm going to go ahead and say his name because KPFA can't do anything to me, and I'm not a fan of Pacifica. Michael Yoshida, I think that's the name of the racist suspect.
Yeah, that's the name. That's just one of the racist suspects. I don't want to say that because he's just one.
Oh, right.
Just one of them.
Duly noted. You said that you felt like he was trying to intentionally provoke you into maybe getting yourself in a similar situation as Miss Foster. Did he say anything? I know recording the tapes would be enough, but did he say anything else to you to try to provoke that?
Well, he got in my face. In any other situation, he wouldn't. I've seen him in public before, and the man lightweight was running for cover. And I didn't even run up on him or even show any aggression. He was running for cover because he knows what he deserves. And so, but within the station walls, especially when it furthers the plan of the White Supremacy Council, which he is basically a minion of, he basically plays the role of somebody who tries to provoke them. They try to put it out there, he's somebody, but him and I know the real, and that's why when we are outside the station, he's very, very polite, no matter where we're at in the relationship. He's very polite, and but inside the station is when he gets bold, and so I haven't seen him since, so that we can probably talk out our differences, but outside of the station, but I haven't seen him, so
Wow. Context of white supremacy. I want to check to see if folks have any questions, but I wanted you to explain, because I think this is really important too. It was written, in a lot of this information you all can read for yourself. If you go to sfbayview.com, they have a lot of information on what has transpired with Mr. J.R. Valrey over the past 5 months now. But in one of those reports, it keeps coming up. Most of the people who work at KPFA do so on a volunteer basis. They're not paid. However, they do have a union, the Communications Workers of America, C.W.S, and unless I'm misinformed, the paid employees. I'm so. Did I make an error?
No. I said that's true.
Oh, okay. Mostly, the paid employees. They are the folks who are a member of the union, the Communications Workers of America, and I suspect these are mostly white people who are members of this union. The suspension, was it suggested by the C.W.S union members at KPFA?
Yes, it was. It was suggested, and they actually put in a number of bogus reports. What do you call it? The name is escaping me, but they put in a number of reports against me. People who weren't at any of the incidences put in different things. They're intimidated. And just so you guys really honestly know physically how big I am, I'm 5'4", weigh 140, 145, and they're physically intimidated because I'm a black man walking through the station and not intimidated by them, as well as have the vocabulary and the ability to defend myself on a mental or physical level, and they don't really, they feel intimidated. So Remind me of the question. Excuse me, I forgot the question. But
with the CWA, the Communications Workers of America, you already answered one part of it, that they did suggest the suspension. Just what is the procedure? Like, you've been there for, you said you've been working there for 13 years, unpaid, volunteer, whatever the case may be. But
right.
What is the process for becoming a paid worker at KPFA, and how is it that so many non-white people there are not paid workers?
Well, you got to be white, you know. You got to be white, you know. So, I mean, you got to be involved with the white. But if you're not white, you got to be acceptable to the White Citizens Council. But, you know, I'm not going to compromise what needs to be said. And like I was talking about earlier, the California Prison Hunger Strike, the Block Report, and the Bayview have played very vital roles in helping the prisoners to stay in contact with each other from prison to prison when we report what's going on in some of the different prisons, and give stats and, you know, talk about what we've heard about what's going on in the different prisons. So another reason they don't want to pay black people in particular is because 59,000 watts is powerful. But to answer your question about what's the policy, there is no written policy. There's no written policy. And like I said, it went all the way to the head of Pacifica, the executive director. Her name is Summer, and you can email her at summer@pacifica.org. But Summer Reese, she basically suspended me and told me to my face because the union is pressuring her. And I asked her, well, who runs the station, the executive director or the union? And she said she's scared to get sued. And I said, so that basically says that the union runs the station through intimidation. Well, we're not going nowhere. We don't care how long the fight takes. We're not going nowhere. And if we are permanently banned from prime time, then we will let people know what kind of brand of radio or quote-unquote white liberal progressive quote-unquote radio this is. You know, instead of white progressive, they should call it white racist, left-wing racist radio. And so, you know, we're not going to let up off of it because I think there's a valuable lesson, if nothing else. There's a valuable lesson in this fight that is basically that we need to control our own media. If we don't happen to own it, then we need to find other means to control it. And so, or at least control different primetime spots in it so that we can get our messages to our people out. And so, you know, I prefer that we own our own radio stations, but if we're in a situation where we don't own our own radio stations, we don't tuck our tail, we go and basically integrate ourselves into these other radio stations and take advantage of the power and push a line of self-determination out through the airwaves to our much-needed communities.
Context of white supremacy. I'll get Justice's questions. I just wanted to ask, there was an admission at KPFA. That's how Andrew Phillips was demoted as interim general manager. What exactly did they admit to with regards to, since they said racism was being practiced at KPFA, what did they admit to?
Well, they said, they didn't go specific, but they said that Andrew Phillips did nothing to de-escalate the racism that was going on at KPFA. And so, yes, racism was used. Andrew Phillips in his announcement to the community talked about my case and talked about me accusing him of being a racist, which he is. You know, he talked about it, and he said that we are the reason that he got fired. You know, they didn't really want that branded with Pacifica. So as we see that the brand is vulnerable, and we know with the Trayvon Martin, people are very open and emotional about what's going on, we are trying to permanently cement higher ideals that we should struggle for, such as our own media and media that represents us. You know, so that's what we're on. We feel like it's a beautiful time to fight for something like that with all the things going on with Trayvon Martin. We can't bring Trayvon Martin back, but we can this radio station so that we can communicate with each other as to what's going on. So that's where we at with it.
Right on. Just for my clarification, did Andrew Phillips, was he demoted or did he just get out and out fired? Like, is he no longer at KPFA?
Well, he was fired from KPFA, but demoted in the network. They moved him around, and he's supposedly doing something. He comes to the station, but he's an employee of the network, but he's on paid vacation, you know. So it wasn't like how I'm suspended. And he's still doing little minor things here and there. But, you know, we are glad to say that he's not the general manager no more. And he doesn't have a voice at the table on how the station is managed. But like I said before, we are fighting the new manager also. So, you know, Richard Porosky, and we are going full force ahead. And we may have to get rid of him too.
Reminded me of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. again. White people, under the system of white supremacy, white people do not get fired, they get transferred. That's an unfortunate reminder for victims of racism. Justice, if you had some questions for Mr. J.R. Valrey, your line should be open.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Greetings, J.R.
Hey, greetings.
What was the most constructive thing that you said or done on your radio program?
The most constructive? I don't think there is a most constructive. I cover black people's issues in a self-determining way, whether we're talking about Hurricane America, that some people call Katrina, to the Scott sisters, to what was going on in Libya for real. Where basically the United States imperialism was trying to take the people's land as well as riches and natural resources like water. So, you know, we believe in culturally as well as politically and socially educating our people because we know that the system is not going to do it. Hello?
Yes. If you had to break down what racism, white supremacy is to a 9-year-old confused black person, what would you say, or what are some of the things you would say?
Well, I think my first political lesson from my mother was, you know, this is a white man's world, and you have to work 3 times as hard, if not more, to make the same mark that they make because of, you know, their white skin privilege. That's how I would say it straight up. I mean, I have a 9-year-old, and so that's what I told her. And I have a 5-year-old, actually turned 6 recently, a 6-year-old, and that's what he knows too. He knows what's going on. He knows that his people is oppressed all over the world. They know that they have to play a role in alleviating the oppression of our community and our nations around the world.
What do you think the world would be like without a system of racism, white supremacy?
It would be where we would be living in a self-determined manner. You know, we would be, black people will be living out our fullest existence, highly technological, highly environmental, where we're not poisoning ourselves and other living beings on the planet. So, you know, that's what I see.
Thank you. Gus, go ahead.
Context of white supremacy. If listeners have questions, the number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943#. Press *6 if you have questions. I feel this is very interesting. Before you came on, we had played the segment from Democracy Now!, which also is one of the subsidiaries of Pacifica Radio. I'm sure you are familiar with Amy Goodman. What are your thoughts on her? Do you suspect that she too could be a racist?
No, I don't suspect it. I know she is. And, you know, there is no suspecting to it. I mean, she doesn't cover self-determination for African people. She did for Haiti, but she doesn't for the Congo. She doesn't for Libya. She doesn't for any African nation. I mean, she's pro-imperialism. I urge people to go look at Amy Goodman's coverage when Libya, the invasion of Libya was going down, an African nation, and actually the second most powerful African nation, only second to South Africa in terms of economic abilities and natural resources, as well as organization, in taking a revolutionary stance. South Africa hasn't taken a revolutionary stance, but Libya has taken a revolutionary stance. So Amy Goodman didn't cover it in that manner. You know, they was pro-imperialism, overthrow of the whole country, and squandering of its resources. That's just one thing. But, you know, there's a very good critique on blockreportradio.com in an interview that I did, a radio interview that I did with Dr. Jared Ball, who is actually also a broadcaster with WPFW. It's a Pacifica station in the Maryland area, Maryland and D.C., Virginia area. And he actually conducted a study. He works at a university also, and he conducted a study and said that democracy now actually had less black people. We're not even talking about black people that really represents for the community, but they have less black people than even Good Morning America. So these left-wing people, quote-unquote, are more racist than some of these right-wing, you know, whatever word we is coming out, I keep saying white wing, but white wing people that they call so racist. I mean, it's more of the society itself, the left and the right. And so, you know, that's what it's at.
It's been my experience that a lot of black people, a lot of non-white people, they think Amy Goodman, she is wonderful. She is a well-meaning white person who has a long history of talking about racism and what they call progressive issues. They don't think she is a racist at all. How do you think it is that she's been able to fool so many non-white people?
Well, I think we get caught up in the cult of personality with certain people. We start liking a few of the stories that they put together, and we let up on having a critical eye. And, you know, we can't let up on having a critical eye. Our existence is what we're fighting for. You know, if we don't have a critical eye, we can easily be brainwashed and defeated, which I think is what you're actually saying, is that a number of people, because she talks about Palestine or because she talks about Black Panthers from 40 years ago and doesn't support us in what we're doing right this second. But, you know, a lot of people are brainwashed by it. But, I mean, to be very honest, a lot of even progressive black people, they're looking for a white leader subconsciously when they haven't gotten the white man inside them out. You know, haven't tried to reprogram themselves from slavery. Many of us didn't come from conscious parents. I didn't come from conscious parents. My mom wasn't really, my grandmother had a certain amount of consciousness and my mother had a certain amount of consciousness due to the fact they was from Oakland, California, and was in contact with people directly, like Huey Newton himself from the Black Panther Party, so there was a certain amount of consciousness in the streets, but it wasn't driven to the point where it made them want to necessarily act. Yes, talk about it, but not act. So, I lost what I was saying. Excuse me again. But I hope that answers the question. If not, please restate it.
All right. I agree. I think exactly what you were saying about just being confused, and a lot of us, it's not like we got this information about what's happening on the planet with regards to white supremacy when we were born. It took us a while to get this information, so the confusion is rife. One of the other slick things that I've seen that Amy Goodman, she seems very skillful at getting other black people on her program to bash other black people, where she's not the one that's saying anything bad about these black folks, but she'll just bring another black person on and get them to do it. So then she still gets to look like an innocent, great liberal, well-meaning white person, and this black person is just giving their views. And really the whole time they're just bashing other black people. Have you seen that pattern as well?
Yeah, I definitely did with Manny Marable's book specifically. Like I was telling you about Jared Ball, we did an interview about the Manny Marable book on Malcolm X. And, she praised the book and called it a definitive work. People who haven't read the Manny Marable book on Malcolm X, basically he says that Malcolm X was a homosexual prostitute. Now, we heard that Malcolm X was pimping in his autobiography and stuff like that, but where'd you get homosexual prostitute? We would say, I believe that if that was true, J. Edgar Hoover would have exposed that. And I believe that J. Edgar Hoover, being the head of the FBI, who was the head of the FBI during Malcolm X and who was actually involved in the assassination of Malcolm X, would have exposed that to the public, discrediting Malcolm X in much the same way that they use the sexual content of Dr. Martin Luther King's life to try and discredit him. And so, I don't believe it, but Amy Goodman did a few shows on it, and like I said, a few shows on this book, and she actually pitched it and promoted it in a number of different ways. And so you can check that out, the interview that I did with Dr. Jared Ball, where he breaks down Amy Goodman as well as this book on blockreportradio.com in the radio section.
Outstanding. blockreportradio.com. If you go to sfbayview.com, if you go there, sfbayview.com, I said it right. You'll see the link for Block Report Radio there as well. So, two birds with one stone. Go to both of them, blockreportradio.com and sfbayview.com. Justice, did you have some other questions you wanted to ask? Justice, are you with us? Not.
Oh my goodness, man! Okay, my mute button is acting up. Yes, I did. Do you think people classify George Zimmerman as a white person?
Say it again.
Do you think white people classify George Zimmerman as a white person?
I don't know what white people really think. I guess you would have to ask somebody white.
Okay, a lot of black people are upset about Zimmerman being not guilty of the Trayvon Martin case. What suggestions do you have on calming down non-white people and showing them that these cases happen every day, where a black person gets killed and the person is not guilty, especially if it was a white person?
Well, I'm not into calming people down. First off, I'm not into that. That's not my job. I think we need to rise up, not calm down.
Okay. To unconfuse a non-white person about racism, white supremacy, what would be a constructive question to ask them?
You said to ask a non-white person about white supremacy? I don't really understand the question.
Okay, if a non-white person is confused about racism, white supremacy, and you would want them to be unconfused or try to get or to try to understand that white people are the problem. What would be a constructive question to ask them?
If I'm trying to get it over to them, what would be a constructive question to ask them is history. Look at what do they know about history? That's one of the first questions I would ask.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering my questions, Gus. Go ahead.
I know.
Thank you.
For our listeners, because the California prisoner strike has not gotten as much attention as Trayvon Martin and some of the other issues that have been big news. Can you share with our listeners, can you give them a better understanding of what's happening with the California prisoner strike?
Yes, there was a total of over 30,000 at the height of the California prison hunger strike. There was 30,000 prisoners that were involved with it. It started around July 8th, and a number of prisoners are fighting security. They have a number of demands, but one of them is against the security housing units, otherwise known as the SHU, at places like Corcoran, Calipatria, Pelican Bay, and some of the other concentration camps in California, and I'm sure around the country, but in California they're called the SHU, indefinite detention. Basically, they don't let people out unless they debrief. Debrief is a euphemism for snitch. They gang validate you. So if they validate you and say that you are a member of this gang, then you can be put into an indefinite detention type of situation like Guantanamo Bay. And they can keep you where you don't get natural sunlight for years on end, like they have people like Hugo Pinnell, who has been locked up in the SHU for over 3 decades. And so he was a comrade of George Jackson, Field Marshal of the Black Panther Party, and one of the architects of the prison movement of the 60s. So the prison movement of today is demanding and making a lot of demands about the situation in which they are being incarcerated. And also, just to give people a context, there's a judge out here named Felton Henderson, a black judge, who demanded that California release 30 to 40,000 prisoners instantly. And the governor, Jerry Brown, has refused to honor what the judge ruled, the black judge ruled. And so right now there's a fight going on. There's a threat to hold the governor in contempt because he's not doing anything to release the 30,000 prisoners that Judge Felton Henderson told him to release due to valley fever, which is a sickness, an epidemic that is going on in a number of the California prisons due to the fact of overcrowding. And so that is another issue that is going on that is in the context of the California prison hunger strike.
There's coverage of this, sfbayview.com. You can click the site and get more information.
Yes.
Do you have material on this at Black Report Radio as well?
We haven't been recording due to the suspension as vigorously as we were before, but you can get the information at sfbayview.com in regards to Felton Henderson in the California prison hunger strike.
Outstanding. Also, I wanted to get in as well because I've seen this. So this is one of those when a lot of times when Mr. Fuller, when he says tacky, trifling, terroristic, doesn't get any better than tacky. I've seen this before too. In fact, it reminded me one of our guests who wrote "You Mean There's Race in My Moving," Khalid Patterson. He's been on the program many times, black male, when he talked about for consecutive years, white people had a movie out during Black History Month with a black male in a dress, that this was happening over and over again, that was an image that they wanted to make sure was promoted every February, black male in a dress. At KPFA, can you tell the listeners the significance of Sasha Lilly getting an award in the middle of February?
Well, not even just in the middle of February, but on the birthday of Huey P. Newton, who was probably the most well-known revolutionary black man from the area, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party. On his birthday, they wanted to give this woman an award, a white woman an award, when they, and no one was allowed to do any, you can do black history programming within the context of your own program, but no one was given a special when, like you said before, the gay pride people were given 10.5 hours throughout Black History Month. We weren't given no hours for a special. And so it was significant dealing with Sasha Lilly because Sasha Lilly also used to be the programmer. And we talked a little bit about the program, the nonprofit program, Youth Radio. Youth Radio used to have a show where they trained black and brown young people on how to do radio, and they had a show on KPFA. Sasha Lilly, when she was a programmer and the F word was used in a song that some of the young people, or one of the young people played on the air, then Sasha Lilly banned the program. On January 8th, Sasha Lilly herself had some tape that actually cussed on the air and actually said the same two words twice, the same number of times that the young people said it. She was not suspended, and that was on January 8th. They were going to actually do an artist talk with her about her book on February 16th on Huey Newton's birthday. What we asked for was we were going to do a teach-in on racism, a peaceful teach-in, a peaceful quote-unquote teach-in on racism right outside the doors. So meet us, but we're not going to be in the program. We're going to be outside the program. And so KPFA quickly canceled the event because they didn't want a public showdown to go down. And so, it was a small victory in the ongoing war against racism and white supremacy at KPFA.
And in your view, is this a conscious, deliberate act to reward a racist suspect like Sasha Lilly by giving her something, some sort of recognition on Huey P. Newton's birthday?
I definitely think it is. Sasha Lilly is one of the young leaders of the White Citizens Council. They have older leaders also, but she's one of the younger leaders of the White Citizens Council, and all they do is push each other to do things in the Bay Area or to be recognized. But the reality is, when you look at the ratings, they don't have high ratings. What they do is they pad the contributions that come in. So what do I mean by that? They'll get $90,000 in pledges on the radio airwaves, but in reality, that's their friends talking about, I have $10,000 and $20,000 with no intention to pay. So they reach their numbers through lies, and that is why the manager claims that he has such a hold on them because of the money that they raise, although that is not the amount of money that's coming in, and everyone knows it, but we don't have a clear sense of what the amount of money that is actually coming in is in regards to the amount that is claimed to have been raised.
Wow. Is that information where we have the same divide, where the paid staff, they know this information and just don't share that with the non-paid, non-white staff? Is that how it's going on? Or
yeah, it's very much common knowledge, but like I said, when you keep a certain breed of black people around you, I'm just one of the few that slip through the cracks, but they keep a certain breed of black people around them that just are happy to be on the radio and are not going to fight for their people to have better working conditions, as well as more airtime to voice our views about what is happening in the world, not just around us, but to us. So, to basically, for people who have seen the Spike Lee movie, I forgot what it's called, but the one dealing with Damon Wayans. Bamboozled, yeah. They hire a lot of man-tans. So that's what it is.
Have you seen the new film, Fruitvale?
Yes, I have seen the new film, Fruitvale.
Wow. What were your thoughts?
I think it's a beautiful depiction of black life in the Bay Area, and from him getting fired to the issues that not being first fired, last hired, that young black male specifically being the target of the society. He basically was just going through a lot of everyday situations that we have to go through to put food on our family's table when we don't own enough businesses in the community to hire the black population in the area. So we have to go to other people. And when we go to those other people, they don't hire black males. They may hire black females more than they hire black males, as well as everybody else more than they hire black males. I think that was beautifully depicted in the film, the hardships that young black males face. Now, my only criticism of the film is that Oscar Grant, the rebellions with Oscar Grant were also tied. Well, some of the rebellions just dealt with Oscar Grant solely, but some of the rebellions dealt with Lavelle Mixon, who 3 months after Oscar Grant was murdered, killed 4 police officers, and then was murdered by the Oakland Police Department. Basically, the movie Fruitvale didn't talk about police terrorism per se. It almost kind of put Oscar Grant on the pedestal, and it was a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but Oscar Grant was by far not the only one, and not even the only one that year. You know, so I felt like it should have said more about police terrorism being an epidemic in our community. But other than that, it was very well written. It is definitely worth seeing, and it is definitely a movie that we support. It is done by Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is actually the director and writer, and we actually share a cousin. So, you know, we know each other, and we talk.
Oh, right on.
You can check out the interview I did with Ryan on blockreportradio.com, or you can read it at sfbayview.com.
Outstanding. And Lavelle Mixon, I mentioned his name not that long ago. It was black people were saying that we don't have enough adequate responses with regards to black people using counter-violence when they have had enough, and that is not true. Lavelle Mixon was one, Colin Ferguson and Kosi Thandoe, even right here in Washington State, Maurice Clemens from a couple years back. And these are all recent. You don't have to go all the way back to Nat Turner. You can just go in the last 5 years. There have been quite a few.
You can even add the Black Pig, Chris Dorner.
Oh, exactly. This is when this came up. Exactly. This is when this came up. This, not the first time. It has happened quite a bit. These just tend to be slipped under the rug so people don't hear about them. I know Lavelle Mixon did not get very much coverage at all. I remember when Oscar Grant was, the Trayvon Martin, when Oscar Grant was on every day and everybody was talking about that, Lavelle Mixon happened just a few weeks after his death, and that got hushed up real quick. I think most people now don't even know his name, Lavelle Mixon, right down there in the Oakland area.
Well, we do a celebration for Lavelle Mixon every year.
Wow.
There's at least a visual for Lavelle Mixon, so he's remembered. And there's also T-shirts, and there's also a movie that I helped to put together called Operation Small Axe that deals with what happened with Lavelle Mixon and some of the actions of the community that supported Lavelle Mixon.
Well, Operation Small Axe, is that the name of it?
Yes, and you can check it out on blockreportradio.com. We have it for sale there, but some of the previews are on blockreportradio.com, where you can check out the trailer on YouTube. Put in Operation Small Axe, you can see, I believe we have 2 different commercials.
Oh, right on. Operation Small Axe, check it out, blockreportradio.com, sfbayview.com. Person that called in from a blocked number, did you have a question for Mr. J.R. Valrey, person at a blocked number?
Greetings, can I be heard?
You're a little low, 909, just speak up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, greetings to you and your guests. I was wondering, have you ever heard of Black Liberation Weekend?
Yes, that used to be at KPFA and at KPFK. Yes, I have.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, they did the same thing to Dr. Kwaku Person Lynn. He was doing the Black Liberation Weekend, and he had Dr. Welling on there, and they cut his show. People were calling in saying that it was racist and whatnot. And even out here, Earl Afari Hutchinson, you familiar with him?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, he was trying to do town hall meetings out here in L.A., and talk about racism, and he didn't like the hours and whatnot, so he gave the station kind of like an ultimatum or whatever to say that he wanted a different time, and it was important to have these town hall meetings. And they said, well, you can go. They didn't they didn't negotiate with him really, So I was just wondering if you knew about their situations, because I know about their situations, like, you being a black male and doing the same thing, and it seems like KPFA, they, I don't know. I stopped listening to them. Like, I used to listen to them, back in the day when I found them, but I kind of stopped. Are you familiar with? Is it true? Have you heard Gary? No, he goes on the radio and talks about how he got off the radio in New York because of the racist black people that were turning the listeners off. Have you heard any of his rants on how racist the Pacifica stations are?
Yes, actually Gary Noel, I believe, quit KPFK recently. He left. So, yeah, I definitely have kept up with his case. In terms of Earl Afari Hutchinson, I'm kind of critical of some of his work, but I wasn't familiar with his case. I wasn't familiar I didn't even know that he had a show. But the other two, yes, I am familiar with their work and support their work.
All right, that was my question. Just was wondering if you knew what they were going through and if it was anything similar to, you mentioned the T-shirts. This is the question. You were talking about the T-shirts and whatnot. Have you heard, like, I guess in maybe in the Bay Area, or that like T-shirt businesses like are booming off of like the deaths of youth and whatnot? Like this industry kind of sprung up, like when youth die or whatever, like they go and make all these T-shirts made with pictures and stuff on it. Is that still going on?
Yeah, it's a trend. I don't say it's boom. I don't know. It is a trend. It is the style of young people out here when to put their friends on the T-shirt or put their friends on the hoodie. Many of the places that are doing it that I know of are black-owned. I think it is a cultural phenomenon and something that the young people are doing to express their pain and sadness and have their people with them. And like I said, I know some of the places that do this, most of the places that do this are black-owned places. And yes, it is part of the trend. So, I don't totally look at it like it's being imposed on us. It's actually a trend out here that young people have been engaged in for actually a number of years.
Do you think that's a worse? What do you think the difference is between remembering the dead, the dead, and kind of like having some type of a worship, or it being perverted to where you now like worshiping the dead?
I don't have an issue. I don't think it's a worshiping of the dead. You can put Nike on the front of your chest. Why you can't put one of your ancestors or one of your loved ones on your chest? I would rather have somebody that's affiliated with whoever I respect than Sprite or whatever these ridiculous, or even Polo or whoever it is that we buying shirts from. So again, if we cut into the black business aspect of the money and economics of it as well, I think that that's a plus. I think that, it is a style, and you could be critical of the style if that's what you're asking. But, it's a style that the young black people are engaged in. I guess you should also be critical of the people that build altars in their house. That's the way they honor their dead. So, I'm not critical of how people remember and express the pain that we know is so inherent in our community being oppressed over the last 400 years in the United States.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Gus, for letting me ask a couple questions.
For sure.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Other folks with questions, make sure you don't wait till last minute. 760-569-7676, and the code is 564 943 #. Press *6 if you have questions. You can use the flash phone as well if you do not want to use your phone or what have you. If you want to dial in that way, the address again is tiny.cc/1race. And that's the number 1. The address again, tiny.cc/1race. I lived in the California area before I moved up here to Washington State. The time that I moved to California, I think right when I arrived, they were talking about the Oakland Riders incident. Do you remember that, Mr. Valrey?
Yes, I covered the Oakland Riders about 2003.
Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that? What you recall from that?
The Oakland Riders were some police officers that got caught, basically making false reports, beating up people, robbing people. I would say even killing people. They were eventually acquitted. But, the city of Oakland had to pay out over $100 million because of the abuse that these people initiated on over 100 black people in Oakland. One fled to Mexico. The other 3 were acquitted. One is still on the run. Never supposedly had been seen in Oakland since. So, that's who the Riders are. I mean, I think it's important to know the history, but I don't put so much emphasis on the Riders because, I think they try to point them out as rogue police officers. I don't really believe in rogue police officers. I believe in a rogue police state. I believe in a corrupt system in general. There's no such thing as a rogue police officer in a rogue department or in a rogue nation that has been against us the whole time. So, I mean, when you say rogue from what? Rogue from the people who enslaved us? No, they're more of a continuation of the people who enslaved us. So, yeah, that's who the Riders are.
And they were targeting mostly non-white people, mostly black people. That was my understanding. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they were targeting black people in West Oakland.
I was super confused, but I remember that stuck out in my head as soon as I got. In fact, it was a white person who was telling me about it. I think she was a lifelong Bay Area resident. And she's like, ooh, yeah, it's not a good day for white people. Nothing to be proud of there. Same thing, almost like what you're saying, as though this is anomalous behavior, as though this does not happen every day. You brought Christopher Dorner. You're down in the California area. I think a lot of the folks who listen to this broadcast, we paid a lot of attention to that. What were your thoughts on what's transpired, and even since then, because they've still continued to investigate and make reports? What are your thoughts on what's transpired with that case thus far?
Well, I think when we look at the case of Christopher Dorner, we have to look at that this was a killing machine that white power unleashed on our community. But when the killing machine turned around and started killing them, then he became basically a wanted man that they had to assassinate because he knew too much and was doing too much. For the people who don't know who he is, he was a highly trained river marine special ops. He was in the military and special ops and special operations, basically go behind enemy lines and do all kind of crazy 007 type of stuff. And they had him on the Los Angeles Police Department, and they unleashed him on the black community. Now, he felt like he was done wrong inside the department. Now, he didn't have a problem with what the department was doing to black people in general, but he did have actually, he did once. He reported that it was some abuse. He felt like they didn't handle it the correct way. And so and then they retaliated against him, and he wasn't promoted in the ways that he thought he should be. And then he just went, for lack of a better word, what the young people call ham, hard. He went hard and turned on them and basically, killed a number of them and threatened a larger number of them, but they eventually killed him and assassinated him. So that's Christopher Dorner, and that's pretty much how I see the Christopher Dorner issue.
When you say they unleashed him on the black community when he worked for the LAPD, what do you mean?
Well, he was a special operations man in the military.
So this is a man that they fly in and they send in the countries on undeclared wars that we don't even know about that the United States is engaged in. And he's somebody who works behind enemy lines and is almost like a Navy SEAL or like the movie Jason Bourne or something like that. And they had him working the streets of Los Angeles. You know, he wasn't trying to take down a government or anything like that. He was trying to take down black people right here locally. And that's what he was doing. He wasn't trying. And so he was highly skilled. He was a killing machine that they invested a large amount of money in the training. And, you know, their boy actually turned on him and bit them.
Wow. Now, I had not heard anyone presented in that manner and saying when he worked with the LAPD, but specifically with the training, because I remember back when this was all fresh in February and seeing that he had extensive counterterrorism training. This is not just, you know, somebody who enlisted or what have you. He got awards for the work that he done combating terrorism. And you think to take a person with all this high level skill with killing and weapons to then turn them out as an LAPD member with the history of LAPD, Rodney King all the way through. I had not heard exactly to then have him policing regular citizens in the LA area. I hadn't heard anyone present it that way, but with that, what you just said, which makes total sense, everything you just said, with that, coupled with the fact that he was alleged to have killed two non-white people, the non-white female and the black male. I think they were the first two casualties that were attributed to Mr. Dorner. That gave me a lot of pause in this case and saying, wait a minute, I don't know if I can celebrate this as an act of black rebellion against racism if the result is just other black people being killed. Does that make sense? Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, from the stuff that I'm informed about, that it was hooked in with the police too. So me, I don't distinguish black from white pigs. Black pig, white pig, 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 pig. You know, so I mean, the police wear blue. Black police and white police kill black people and are engaged in genocide. That's like, to me, that's like saying that, you know, just because there's a black overseer that he shouldn't get the business that a white overseer would get. I mean, an overseer is an overseer is an overseer. And so, you know, yes, he was engaged. It was a civil war that the police were basically having. And, you know, of course, I was pushing for Dorner to do more damage, but that's because I see Dorner and them as the enemy. I mean, to be very honest. And so, you know, that's basically how I sum that up.
The black male who was killed, the evidence that I saw, he didn't work for the LAPD. He did. His girlfriend was the captain of the LAPD, if I'm not mistaken. Was she the daughter? I thought she was the daughter of the LAPD officer, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Even that's legit, like somebody that they are not affiliated with any enforcement. I mean, I'm not so much condoning it. I just, like I said, I think, you know, but I mean, you got to watch yourself when you go with a cop's daughter. I mean, you got to watch yourself. I mean, you never know who's coming for that cop's family in a time of passion, for lack of a better word. But I don't, you know, again, I don't see Dorner as a hero in any sense of the word. And I think that people have to be conscious how close they get to the system. You know, I mean, I think it's important to definitely have a race-first ideology for black people. I definitely think that's first. To expand on that, we have to have and know that the state is against us, because black cops, just because they're black, doesn't mean that they're on the team of black people, you know. And so I think that we have to examine the actions and making a determination from there. I mean, we're in a war situation where we fighting for our very existence, and I think we have to act like it. Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000%. I think we say that pretty regularly here. White supremacy racism is war. And just because someone is black, I would definitely suggest not thinking that that person is going to be down for you or even down to end racism just because they are a black person or a non-white person. Have you met, we've been asking a couple folks this question recently, do you know or have you met any white individuals that you are certain that they're not racist?
No, I think they're all singed with racism. I mean, the reality is that they were created in they were basically, superiority was pushed on them since birth, just like inferiority was pushed on us since birth. And so we have an uphill battle. I think that's what the society, I think there's some that fight against it at times, but I'm yet to meet somebody who I would say doesn't have any racism in their character that's white in America. I haven't met them, and I wouldn't say that I know of any.
I don't know of any either. Before we close, are you reading anything right now? We try to keep tabs on what folks are reading, what literature they're paying attention to. Are you reading anything currently?
Yeah, actually, I'm reading this book that's about to come out dealing with the Black Panther Party singing group called The Lumpin'. The name of the book is called Party Music. It's by Ricky Vincent. Also, I'm about to read Gil Scott-Heron's autobiography of Gil Scott-Heron called The Last Holiday. I just finished reading Slavery by Another Name. Book Slavery by Another Name, which I definitely recommend. The premise of the book is that basically slavery never ended, and I'm not talking about, black people just quoting the 13th or 14th Amendment, but her giving the fact that slavery, it transitioned, and she actually documented the transition and actions in between the years after the quote-unquote Emancipation Proclamation that they did 150 years ago. The writer actually is giving documented proof of how it was transitioning in places like Alabama and how it has continued to transition and evolve into what we call, or what I don't call, but some call the criminal justice system of today. And I think it's a beautiful book, and I think people should definitely check it out. And check out all of those books, honestly.
I wrote Slavery by Another Name, Douglas Blackman. He's been on the program before. Racist Suspect, but that book is very constructive. Slavery by Another Name. He actually came up this way and spoke to the white people in Washington State. We were able to go check out the lecture, Non-Mighty Wick as well. The first book, Party Music, you said that's Ricky Vincent? Did I get the title?
Ricky Vincent, it's called Party Music. It's about the Lumpin', which was the singing group of the Black Panther Party. It talks about their history, and it's basically a biography of the Lumpin', which, again, was the official singing group of the Black Panther Party. So I'm reading about them, and some of the things that I'm reading right now about them are dealing with their relationship with the two brothers that did the Olympics, and, there was a critique of what happened when they put the Black Power fist up, and the critique was that they weren't even supposed to be there. They were supposed to boycott the Olympics like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did that year, when he was playing for UCLA, and a number of other black athletes, but they chose to go anyway, and they did put up the Black Power fist. But I'm only in the second, third chapter, and it's just talking about their relationship with them, as well as talking about some of their the beginning of their relationship with the leadership of the Black Panther Party, particularly Emory Douglas, who I know personally, who is the Minister of Culture of the Black Panther Party, was the Minister of Culture the whole time from probably about 1 year in 1967 until 1982 when it closed its doors. Many of you would know his work because if you see the drawings or artwork of the Black Panther Party, majority of the time it is him. He is actually somebody who I interviewed about revolutionary art on BlockReportRadio.com, as well as in the book Block Report 101 that we have that contains about 30 to 31 interviews with controversial black people. So you can check it out on the BlockReportRadio.com website.
Outstanding. I'm putting both of those on my reading list. The second one, that was Gil Scott-Heron's biography on him, The Last Holiday.
Yeah, it's called The Last Holiday. It's about how he assisted Stevie Wonder in getting Martin Luther King's holiday, and he talked about the work of Stevie Wonder in particular in making sure that black people got that holiday. And I need to read more of it. I've done through it, but I need to read it more thoroughly. But he also played a role, and there was a big happenstance. Actually, Gil Scott-Heron was not the first person who was picked to be on the tour. Actually, the first person picked to be on the tour was Bob Marley. But Bob Marley started getting sick with cancer, and so Gil Scott-Heron took his place. And Gil Scott-Heron, in turn, wrote about it, and that is the center of his autobiography, The Last Holiday. It talks about his life, but in the context, the major climax is the holiday of Martin Luther King, the Martin Luther King holiday.
Wow. Did Gil Scott-Heron, this is an autobiography, he wrote this?
Yeah, it's called The Last, yeah.
Wow. I'm
holiday.
Going on the reading list. Wow.
And you should also check out, like I said, my book, Block Reporting, was one of the last interviews of Gil Scott-Heron. I got one of his last interviews in 2010 before he passed away in 2011, where we had a pretty insightful talk. He was definitely a great person to interview, and who I kept in touch with occasionally also when he was in the area.
Your book is Block Reporting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The name of the book is Block Reporting. Yeah, and you can check it out on the website. So again, there's the documentary Operation Small Axe. That's about the Oscar Grant, Lavelle Nixon issues and police terrorism. We also, to fund our work, we are also selling the book, Block Reporting, which consists of 30 different interviews, 31 different interviews, including people like Malcolm Shabazz, one of my comrades, and also the grandson of Malcolm X, who was recently murdered in Mexico. The book contains an interview with him. It contains an interview with people like Freeway Ricky Ross, who basically was one of the biggest drug dealers on behalf of the CIA in known history of this country. I mean, besides, he was one of the biggest known black people. We know that Oliver North and Ronald Reagan and the United States government are some of the biggest dope dealers, but he was one of the biggest known black ones. We interviewed people like Mumia Abu-Jamal, Erica Huggins, Umar bin Hassan of The Last Poets. It's a number of people, so please check it out.
BlockReportRadio.com, sfbayview.com. I want to make sure we conclude that you give out as much information as possible. I know you all have a petition, two petitions. One is at change.org, and the other one is actually posted on sfbayview.com. I want you to give out any pertinent information, how people can assist you, and hopefully get you back on the air as soon as possible. But before we wrap up, you have a photograph on one of the reports where you're talking about all the abuse that you suffered at KPFA, where you have a photograph of yourself, Malcolm Shabazz, Minister Malcolm X's grandson. Do you want to give any comments just on his recent murder and what you think happened around that event?
I call it an assassination because the governments of Mexico and the United States have been very tight-lipped about what actually happened in Mexico City on May 9th when he was murdered. He was somebody that I had a very close relationship with. I hadn't seen him in about a year, but I had traveled actually to Africa. We had went to Libya together with Cynthia McKinney about 3 weeks before the NATO invasion started on Libya. We were at an African Union summit that Gaddafi was hosting in Libya, and he was somebody who was a featured speaker at the event that the African Union was holding, kind of reminiscent of his grandfather's relationship with the Organization of African Unity. So, he was definitely somebody who was very close to my heart.
a brother who was younger than me, but very well read, very wise. Somebody who definitely had a heart of gold and was trying to do as much as he could to uplift the black community. Somebody who, you know, a lot of his life was very unstable and who had a lot of issues, but still was able to contribute. You know, a lot of stuff about his life is documented. You can check it out in the book and see how he defends himself. But you know, he was a great brother, and we definitely need answers to his assassination. And I think that he should be remembered for the work that he did that was stepping in his grandfather's shoes, and that was very well needed and appreciated. So, you know, rest in power, Haj Malcolm Shabazz, and, you know, we love him.
Context of white supremacy, Ashe. You have given us the email address of racist suspect Summer Reese. Her email address, summer@pacifica.org. She alleged that she's just being strong-armed by the C.W.A., but you can contact her and voice any opinions that you might have to help.
Well, let's be more specific. Let's just lie and say everybody that emails her, tell them.
Mr. Valrey, still with us? Not hearing him. Mr. Valrey, are you still with us? Not hearing you, Mr. Valrey. That was. Oh wow! The timing. I'll ring him back. See if we can get him back on the line. The timing. Let's see here. Let's see if we can dial him back here. Racist man, racist woman. That right there might be another illustration of what domination looks like. Dialing him back now. Excuse the ring.
Please leave your message for
the interference. Was giving out the email address. I think he was saying make it plain when you send your email. The email address again is summer@pacifica.org. Summer@pacifica.org, and this is Summer Reese, the racist suspect who is alleging that she's in charge but being strong-armed by the white union. Racists are telling her what to do and what niggers they want suspended and not to be on the air. Summer Reese, summer@pacifica.org. They also have a petition, two petitions actually. One of them is at sfbayview.com. You can go there. You'll see the petition. You can even just do a search at the top of the page. You can put in J.R. Valrey. You can put in his name, and a bunch of different reports will pop up with information about his suspension and his abuse at KPFA, and you'll see the petition that you can sign. And they also have a petition at change.org. It's linked at sfbayview.com. So once you go there and you get more of the information about what's happened to him, then you also will see both of the petitions. I will post them on my Facebook page, and I will also tweet them so that folks, if you get confused or lost, or if that's too convoluted, I will try to make it as easy as possible so that you'll have access to both of them. The change. Oh yeah, I can't. This is too long. It's at change.org, but it's a very long URL, so I'll just post it and put it on the page. But it's the title of the report that you can go to. If this makes it easier to locate, Bring JR Back to KPFA Now. That's the title of the report, and it's from March 20th of this year. Bring JR Back to KPFA Now. And if you scroll down, it's kind of in the middle of the page. You'll see it says, number one, signing two petitions that are circulating, and you will see there's an email address. Oh, this is the easy one. All right, here you go. Get your pen or whatever you need ready. This is the easy one. You can add your signature by emailing editor@sfbayview.com. No funny spellings, just like it sounds. Editor@sfbayview.com. Very simple. Just send an email to that address. You can just make the subject of the email that you're adding your name to the petition. And then the other one is at change.org, and that one I'll just put on my Facebook because the title is too long. So pleasure having Mr. J.R. Valrey on the program. It is a shame, although not a surprise, that we had some sort of interference there at the end. I wanted him to give out any final information any ways folks can help out. Again, you can visit Block Report Radio, blockreportradio.com, blockreportradio.com. You can visit more information, past archives, great info, blockreportradio.com, and then as well, sfbayview.com, constructive information. We will do our quick commercial. I'll actually try and ring him back one more time, see if we can get Mr. Valrey on the line, see if that works out, and if not, racist, white supremacists, what can you do? We'll be right back after commercial break. Everybody hang tight. Context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at TRIMultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio program, please visit my blog, justdojusticetoday.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words. got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he's sitting around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she loved me, that's all that matter. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
Context of white supremacy. He mentioned Rampart. That is very important. That got mentioned a lot during the Christopher Dorner racial theater from earlier this year. Rampart. I don't know enough about it. I was not living in California when all that went down, and I was confused about racism, so that's like a double whammy. Even if I had been living there, I wouldn't have had an accurate understanding of what I was observing or reading about or seeing on television or however, but that is a very significant event for many reasons. I would say any listeners out there who are interested in what happened with victims of racism, Tupac Shakur and or Notorious B.I.G., the Rampart scandal touched both of those murders, as well as Rodney King and just racism, white supremacy within the department in general, and Christopher Dorner. So if you're interested in any of those events or victims, period, personally interested in what happened with Mr. Dorner, Mr. Shakur, Notorious B.I.G., Rodney King, you should probably know more about Rampart. I know I need to learn more about it, and I had started already looking for books. PBS has done documentaries. There are books that have been written on it, articles that have been written on it, even films that they've done on it. I started trying to gather information, some books, and check out some of the footage that PBS had and just kind of go from there. Along the way, I found a film that came out. There have been several, but a film came out in 2010, and I think it might even be called Rampart. But Woody Harrelson is in it. Ice Cube is in it. There is about a 10-minute sequence. I'm thinking I'm just going to cut it and make a video. Wow. It's Woody Harrelson is playing the white male corrupt cop. And Ice Cube is supposed to be working for internal affairs and investigating these, what they call rogue cops that are, going out doing God knows what, practicing racism and all these other criminal activities. And Woody Harrelson, white male, racist suspect, it is an incredible 10 minutes of time in the film where Woody Harrelson is just, I'm a racist man. I'm like the woman you heard at the beginning, like he said, hey, I'm white. He's just breaking it down to him. It is incredible. I'll double check to make sure I'm giving you the accurate title. But I watched it about a week ago. I think I saw two films back to back that I was like, oh wow, I should probably tell listeners to check out both of these. I'll make sure I'm giving them folks the correct title before we go off. But Woody Harrelson is in it. I think it actually is called Rampart, but that one, great sequence. It might not have accurate information about everything that happened during the Rampart scandal. It's just something to be aware of as you research and gather more material that white people have said that they've been inspired by the events that took place to create all sorts of content that I think does from time to time reveal some truth about the system of white supremacy, white people. Anywho, let's see. I'll go ahead and check the folks that dialed in. The folks that had hands up that are on the line should be two folks. Did anybody have any comments they wanted to get in?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to mention I was going to just support the Small Axe documentary. I had a chance to see that about 2 years ago, and it was just non-mighty wick. I had a chance to see it about 2 years ago. It was very constructive. It inspired me to blog about it, a little short something, just because it was that impactful. There's a scene, I'm not going to spoil the film, but there's a scene with a white person, a black person and a dog. And so, you know, and it was on video, like I say, so it's worth taking a look at. That's it.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, greetings, Gus and Mighty Wick. Hey, I just wanted to tell you real quick about this. They used to have a Black Liberation Weekend. So, yeah, the Dr. Kwaku Person Lynn, he comes on and he's talking about, you know, how happy he is that this Black Liberation Weekend is going to be annual, you know, because black people need, you know, the most help, and everything like this is understood, and we're going to do this once a year. So, like, from Friday all the way to, like, Sunday, he would just take over KPFK, and with interviews, Dr. Welsing, right? Like, Dr. Welsing, he came on around, I think it was like 3 a.m., and but he had Dr. Ben going off, talking about he don't understand homosexuality. He had interviewed Deborah Moore, talking about the math of the black math. She's a mathematician now. She's teaching math, and how the schools is not teaching her. I mean, like, it was just going on and on and on. I was like I just couldn't believe it. And the next year it was supposed to be, it was already off. Like, it went from happy days understanding to sorry to tell you. And what happened was he did some programmers, but it wasn't like, I mean, like, he was on for a long, like, he had the whole weekend to go and set up that just for that one, you know, that one weekend, Black Liberation Weekend, many hours. And I think he only had like a little short. They gave him like, I think they gave him just some nighttime spots to basically say that it wasn't going to be on no more and whatnot. But I tell you, it sounded wild. Like, I knew it when I was listening to it, and I was young. I said, this is cold. You know, this is you know, it was truth. Like, you were just hearing like too much truth. Like, it was, you could tell. I'm like, oh my God, you know, I don't think this is going to fly, you know. I was thinking he had to know that, you know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, that was Black Liberation Weekend, on and off. And I think he was doing it out the Bay. It was KPFA, but then KPFK took it on too. It was bomb. I mean, he introduced. He had a dude that did the autobiography of Miles Davis, like the real one. Like, he hung out with Miles, and I mean, and Miles, you know, we befriended him and kind of told him his thoughts on some stuff. And the guy that did the autobiography, he did something else that was of note, but he was a good writer. So they, you know, it came out. The interview, you know, the book came out good, and it was like real because of how Homeboy decided to bring it out and whatnot, their relationship and whatnot.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. That's I would like to get a count. I don't know if Dr. Welsing would have this, but I would like to get a count of how many like radio programs have been canceled or thrown off the air after a visit from Dr. Welsing or Mr. Fuller or something like that, him trying to get a lot of different people, not just Dr. Welsing, on the program to give out constructive information, and then within, you know, a week, a month they can't have them on the air anymore, been replaced, new content, like standard operating procedure. Same thing they did with Arsenio Hall back in the day when he had Louis Farrakhan on, and boop, off the air.
Gary Noe, he said Gary Noe quit KPFK. He quit New York some years back. I heard him talking about how he quit the Pacifica one out there because black people he was going in on how black people were saying racist stuff and about, white people and, the listeners, because, they're supposed to be listener-sponsored, that the listeners, that was the reason why their listenership was going down. And he was just he was just spilling the beans, talking about, like, I'm going to tell you how many listeners KPFK is losing and whatnot.
Dang.
Yeah, said the program director didn't want him to do it, but he gonna do it anyway.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, he pulled the same thing. That was one of his rants, was just to talk about KPFK and how racist they are and this and that. I was like, wow. And how many listeners they losing? Yeah, listeners they losing.
Was he saying it was black people that were being racist, or it was just, he was saying it correctly, that they were being racist, the white people were being racist, and that, which was he saying?
The people in New York, he was saying that they were racist. The black people that had the programming were putting on racist programming.
What were they doing that he was saying was racist?
I guess he was, speaking. He was basically saying that they were like I got the impression that he was saying that they were like calling names, saying I think maybe saying white people. I think that's probably what it was, just saying using the term white people and whatnot. Kind of like your guest, listening to him. I'm thinking, man, that I can kind of. Just to see, the little history of KPFK and how what's acceptable as far as speech or whatever. Just listening to him, if he's expressing those views on there, I already know they not gonna. That's a done deal. They got a history already. Kwaku, Earl,
Miss Foster, the one he mentioned that got. I read that. I forgot about it, but I read that a while back. The black female that got, he said, hogtied and thrown out of the station, and she had permanent damage that they didn't compensate her for. She was another one.
Man, that's a trip, because KPFK is supposed to be like this, Pacifica, independent, I mean, like if they tell you about the founder of that station, like if they read off the so-called stuff he stood for or whatever, that's another thing. Gary, I don't know if Gary Noah said it, but somebody was saying, like, KPFK, if you read what the founder wanted for the station and what they doing, ain't even on par at all. So I don't really know, but I figured when I heard what the founder was talking about, and they said that they have more, revolutionary type, real, people, talking and saying, saying the truth or whatever, under his, under his decree or whatever. But when he died, it went south or whatever. They're not really living up to that, and that's what I think too. Because they would talk about how it's supposed to be, but when you listen to the program, I heard something on KPFK, man. This dude was saying that. He said that. He talked to some scientists or whatever, and the scientists told him that there's only supposed to be a billion people on the planet, and we're way over that.
Wow.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this dude is out here talking. Yep.
Wow.
I was like, wow, this dude is on here talking crazy. Yep.
That's racist. That's another one. That's not talking crazy. That is talking straight racism, because whenever white people are talking about population, they are talking about racism, white supremacy. They are never talking about getting rid of white people. They might do some white sacrifice here and there, but that's really just the warm-up for who that's really supposed to be targeting, and that's dark people worldwide.
Word. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Like, that's straight up racism, hardcore on KPFK.
And WBAI. I don't know if people, that listen. I don't know how much time people spend listening to talk radio, other than the cows. But Pacifica, that's a lot. That's a major parent company. That's like WBAI in New York. That's KPFK in Southern California, or KPFA in Bay Area, and then KPFK in Southern California. But I mean, that's a lot, and it's more than that too. That are on the Pacifica network. But that little segment that I played, I think 2 weeks back, on Hugh Hamilton on Talk Back. That's on WBAI, subsidiary of Pacifica. They had another white guy on there. He was saying the same thing about population. I played the segment where he was saying all these failed countries. Somalia, and he started saying exactly what I'm saying. He started on the continent, Somalia. Too many people there. Oh my God, all these folks, and they don't even have a piece of bread to rub together. And then he went the next place. It was another non-white area. And Hugh Hamilton even pointed that out. He said, you keep calling out all these areas with a lot of non-white, with a high population of non-white people, and areas that have a history of being tormented and having their affairs meddled in by white people. I think he might have used Western or another, but I mean, he was talking about white people, right? The system of white supremacy going in and stomping on these areas with a lot of non-white people. And the guest did a lot of hemming and hawing and throwing out his buckets of words or whatever, but it was the same thing, giving a white person a lot of time to come on a Pacifica station and talk about population. And I think he even, when you talk about absurd numbers, I think he went up saying something ridiculous like 20 billion people could be on the planet by 20, and it's just 20 billion? Really? Really? Did you count? How did you arrive at these numbers? 20? I mean, it might even been higher than 20 billion.
Oh, man. Wow. Yeah. That's I don't know if people get how wild that is. That's wild. Hey, but that was interesting. I found what the guest was talking about, how they went to Libya. He said Libya, right?
Right, correct.
Yeah, man. And that I found that interesting. He was with Cynthia McKenna. I mean, he was trying, obviously, he was trying to use his head. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like, but it's kind of messed up, sad. That was a good. I never heard that. I didn't know about that. He just brought it out, said that he went with him, he knew him, and they was in Libya talking. Cynthia McKenna. That's interesting.
He has a photograph. It's on sfbayview.com with Minister Malcolm's grandson, Malcolm C.O.W.S. The photo is up. I think it's from 2011. My memory serves correct. But in the last couple of years or so, I suspect, if the timing is right, that's probably after they made their trip to Libya. But yeah, super important. I was glad that got brought out again. Minister Malcolm's grandson. Generational war. He said it on the program. Racism, white supremacy is war. And that's what generational warfare looks like. Minister Malcolm's father, also killed by racist Klan members. And then what happened to his grandson. That's generational warfare against black people.
Did you know about those T-shirts and all that out there?
With it being an industry, I hadn't heard that. I had seen them before, where they get a family member, a friend, or somebody. I had seen that sort of thing. I think that's beyond California, but I didn't know that had caught on that much. That it was that much of a business. I don't have a critique of that. I probably wouldn't chastise anyone for doing that. I wouldn't chastise a non-white person for doing that, but it does give me pause for a moment to remember Mr. Fuller. And he said this following the execution of Troy Davis in 2011, but he was talking about how, and I've heard him say it before, but that's just the program I can think of where he did talk about it, but he was saying that we have become black people, we've become a culture of death lovers, where that's kind of something that we gear up to do. to break out the teddy bears and go to the funeral and the T-shirts and all of that, and saying if we changed the way we treated one another while folks were still here, then we wouldn't have to get into all that when the person dies and going into all these rituals and getting excited for a funeral. But he talked about that in detail, but it did remind me of that, how under the system of white supremacy and being in our pitiful condition, how that death, there's so much suffering, there is so much death, that just becomes a part of it too, the response to the deaths and murders.
You know, I was thinking you couldn't be on KPFK, you know what I'm saying? Like, if people were just, you know, think like, oh, Gus they would like to hear you on KPFK. I mean, I thought that at one point. I think maybe it was like, man, you know, more people. But then when I was listening to the program, I was just thinking like, they wouldn't let you do your show on there, I don't think. Just like how they won't interview Dr. Welsing on any of these, you know, networks talking about, you know, racism and whatnot. Like, they're not going. It seems crazy, like, how you don't call Dr. Welsing, and then, like, you interview these other people, and they don't mention Dr. Welsing. Like, you know what? I can't really answer that question very well, but I know somebody that can. You need to have Dr. Welsing on. That's who you really need to talk to. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't. I hear white people do that all the time. Like, you know, you should have on. They'll say something about one of they, you know, somebody they trying to help get some money, but they gotta know. I don't know if they know who she is or what. Don't you think it's just kind of weird? Like, they're purposefully like avoiding her. Like, they know who she is, but she says we can't call her. You know. Mm-mm.
Oh, it's definitely purposeful. I think, I mean, yeah, they know. I think white people, they function with a high level of intelligence about the system of white supremacy. And she's been on Donahue, and the report I was reading when she was on the program yesterday, doing the debate with Charles Murray, who wrote the Bell Curve. And she's been doing other programs and what have you. I mean, they know about it. She's been in documentary, the Hidden Colors film and that sort of thing. So I'm sure they are very aware. Published author. They know about her work. If they know about Timothy Wise, who has no PhD, no master's, if they know about him and feel like he's qualified to get out and talk, surely a third-generation physician, general and child psychiatrist, surely she can come out and give a few words on racism, white supremacy. But they don't want to do that. They're not trying to have non-white people get clarity about these events and why these things happen. They just want more. And specifically, these white people, they want to have Bill Maher on TV talking crazy, saying that he would have been out in the streets looting and rioting if he was a black person. Or Dave Simon, I think that's his name, David Simon, the white guy who does The Wire, saying the same thing. I'd have been out throwing bricks at the courthouse if I was a black person. So you could have been shot and killed and nobody. I mean, just stupid stuff. Thinking that these white people are down or they're cool, they're not racist. That's what they want. Even with all of this, continuing to push racism, white supremacy, we want to make sure we have a lot of confusion. Make sure that you think Amy Goodman is great. Make sure you think Timothy Wise and Bill Maher, these white people, are not racist. They're not juror B37. They're not those no good white heifers on the jury that acquitted George Zimmerman. Oh no! If Timothy and Amy Goodman and Bill Maher had been on the jury, that Zimmerman would be behind bars right now. That's what they want. That's what they need black people to think. That and lots of emotion. Dr. Welsing would be killing both of those, with number one, giving a definition on racism, and then further clarity about why these things are happening. That is, they are not interested in promoting that at all.
Wow, that's cold. Like, that's not going to come out like the truth of radio. But you know what? You know, you definitely, I'm sure people will advise their youngster, if they want to go into broadcasting or if they want to go into radio, you try to get them in the door as soon as possible. You know what I mean? It depends on, you want to get them in there as early as possible, the young as possible. We get a plan for them if that's what they want to keep. But you have to teach them, you know, what to say and what not to say, because I'm sure like some youngsters might go in there and say, why don't we interview somebody like a Dr. Welsing? or somebody like that, and they get looked at or told real quick. You never know what they're told. Like they're quacks. I don't know. I wonder what they're told. I'm sure it has happened sometimes, but I guess.
Dr. Moore, I was going to say real quick, Dr. Moore, when we were at the White Privilege Conference, he was saying that, cowbell, but yeah, Dr. Moore, he was saying at the White Privilege Conference, he was saying, yeah, do you know Dr. Welsing? It would be great to have her at the conference. And I was like, all right. And we continued to talk about it. And he said, I don't know, didn't she get up and talk about aliens coming down? And I just looked at him like, excuse me? And he said, wasn't she out talking about, aliens were coming down? And I was like, when have you read her book, number one? And he said, oh, yeah, it's painfully true. It's painfully accurate. Yeah, I read. I said, do you remember what page she was talking about aliens in her book? And he said, well, maybe it wasn't it. Did she give a lecture on it? And I was like, man, you're going to have to produce. I have never heard her open her mouth and talk about some aliens or interplanetary travel. I have no idea what you're talking about. If you can't show it to me, I think you're confused. And he never pointed it out or what have you. But, I thought that was very significant. So I suspect that sort of thing could be being said if a non-white person is in a broadcast or KPFA, Pacific or something, and they bring up, oh, let's get Dr. Welsing on. Something like that could be being said.
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking something similar. The wildest put down. She's talking about alien, just something totally dismissive, just made up. Oh no, she talks about aliens. Oh no, that the alien lady.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, everyone.
Oh, greetings, sir.
I see where the guest was abruptly cut off. I had something to say as he got cut off. I've just been listening to the conversation, and I recall someone mentioning about the idea of Dr. Welsing, Minister Farrakhan, coming on the different talk shows. A lot of cases that has caused the canceling. It may have been instrumental anyway in the canceling of I think Arsenio Hall's program when Minister Farrakhan came on. What do everybody thinks about the idea of Michael Baston? I think his name is. He was somewhat instrumental in the bringing attention to the Trayvon Martin incident. He kind of like used his radio airtime, and I suspect he may have racist white man and woman may have punished him for it because down here in South Florida he's been taken off the air. I don't know how much that has extended, but I see that a lot. Even Phil Donahue's program, when he started putting people on like Dr. Welsing, Minister Farrakhan, and Dr. Collett, his program soon left off the air. So what do y'all think about that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know whether or not he was being punished by a racist man, racist woman for his involvement in publicizing what happened in Trayvon Martin. Although it wouldn't surprise me, but I didn't know that he had lost some stations or what have you as a result of that. But to be expected, and I'm sure he's been doing this a while, so I'm sure that was probably no surprise to him either if that did happen. But that's the sort of thing you should expect. I think Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, he was saying before, white people, they are suspicious of black people revolting. I think his quote was specifically that, and he said this the first time he was on the program. This is April 2009. Racist suspect, Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly. He said, white people know black people are treated like garbage. Their loyalties are suspect. we expect that at some point they might get rowdy and try to oppose us. We're on the lookout for that all the time and ways of cutting that off at the knees before it gains momentum. He said, this is a white man who said this on the program, who's written extensively about racism, white supremacy. So all of that should be factored in and expected. It doesn't surprise me. And I feel like there were a lot of people who were talking about Trayvon Martin, even a lot of white people. I feel like really white people, I'm of the opinion that I think white people wanted to talk about the Trayvon Martin situation. I felt like that was getting a lot of coverage there were a lot of white people talking about that last March, February, even before President Obama said anything about it when he was asked at the Rose Garden towards the end of March. So if they're targeting him or any other non-white people, I would say that's just another trifling example of racism, white supremacy, and just making up any old excuse to terrorize a black person. And I would also throw in Jay-Z and Beyonce. I have never been big fans of either of their works. They just don't make content that I appreciate or dig too much. However, I suspect both of them are going to be moving up white people's target list. They were both at a Trayvon Martin rally publicly. They were cameras were there and everything. Jay-Z just did that song on his most recent album talking about slavery. White people named a law to try to keep people from traveling to the area of the world known as Cuba. They named it after them. I've never heard of anything like that before, where a law that's supposed to be set up to stop people from traveling gets named after non-white people who went to this area. Like, we're setting this law up as an example about you. I've never heard that before. To my knowledge, that just does not happen. I would encourage folks just to kind of keep an eye out on both of them. I think Beyonce, she did a song in tribute to Trayvon Martin, and just huge backlash, people leaving all sorts of trifling, nasty comments. I think the same thing happened when she voted for President Obama, and she left a Facebook comment when he won re-election, and it said, and you got to listen carefully to what I'm saying because this is not a curse word. She said, "Take that, Mitches," with an M. White people were furious. They had over 1,000 comments like that night where it was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe what a classless, no good wench you are, and I'll never listen." I mean, it was tons of that. So I would keep them on the radar too as other victims of racism who might become a part of the collateral damage of all of this. And I'll mute my line.
You're right, sir. They are treacherously vindictive, and they're vindictive with the ability to harm. Sometimes, a lot of times, we squabble with one another, but we are less able to harm each other in the ways that racist white man and woman can. I can recall Dr. Welsing stating as a strategy that she is not interested in is speaking on panels, because it gives the audience the opportunity to place some sort of judgment on which panelists that one pays attention to. She, from what I gathered, and I'm just speaking on what my opinion was of what she was saying, that it made sense to me that it would give the audience the chance to vote on which person that is the most clearest on the subject. I noticed Miss Ali was on several panels over the course of time since the Trayvon Martin. I liked a lot of things that she said, but sometimes you get lost. The person that you really wanted to hear gets lost in the confusion that you have on these panels, which is a strategy that I think the races primarily do a lot on these television programs where they have talking about a subject. I noticed.
I seen Dr. Wilson on a panel, and they got up twice to go to the podium. And the first time she got up, she came on and was talking about, she was talking about racism, and I forgot how she went about it, but it was pretty clear to me what she was talking about. And when she went and sat down, the person that got up after her went and contradicted everything she said. And then another female got up and was talking about racism in a real way and things that we have to. And then the person that got up after her contradicted what she said. So when Dr. Wilson had her second time to get up, she was just like, I'm trying to talk about racism. You know, I'm trying to get people to talk about racism. And she was more serious. You could tell she was annoyed about it. But yeah, that was. I think that, I don't know if that was the panel she decided not to do no more, but I could see that she was upset about that. Like, people wasn't talking reality. Like her and this other female, they were talking about the realities of racism and how dangerous it is and whatnot. And some other people got up and was talking like it wasn't as serious as it was.
Yeah, it made sense to me on what she was talking about as far as a caution. I try to when I'm in conversations with people, especially non-white black people, and most people that I come in contact with don't know of her, but I try to trigger their mind off with the movie Baby Boy, because John Singleton was very impressed with from my understanding, the book, The ISIS Papers, and it played a part in his motivation for the movie. So he had in the very beginning of the movie the scene with the star actor in the mother's womb, and I think the actor's voice was doing the narrating. Some of the excerpts from her book, as to try to inform the listener that I'm talking to about who this person is, and she told Mr. Singleton when he called her, and told her what he was attempting to do, and she predicted it right. She said, "Young man, I appreciate your attempts, but no one is going to pay attention. No one's going to really pay attention to that part of the movie." And she, from my experiments, she was quite accurate on that, because most people still don't even pay attention. You know, most non-white people don't even pay attention to certain things. You know, and I thought she was pretty accurate on it.
I don't know if you've seen that picture of Dr. Wilson and Dr. Ani. That picture, man, you know, when I seen it, it was a good picture. Like, you know, when I see pictures, a lot of times I don't like them. I'm like, I don't know why black people are taking all these pictures and whatnot. Because a lot of times, I think Dr. Wilson even said, like, how people be looking in these pictures or whatnot. But that's that picture. I put it on my background, and a female seen it.
What was the picture?
It's Dr. Wilson and Dr. Ani, Marima Ani.
Okay, it was a still shot you talking about?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I just kind of assumed you might have seen it. Yeah, they did a talk. Somebody posted it on the Facebook, and they did.
Where can I look at it at?
Do you ever go to that Facebook group, the cows?
No, I haven't, but I could. I guess I could.
You can just go on Google and type in Dr. Wilson and Dr. Ani. Yeah, and okay. And if you look, it's going to be a recent one. I think it says something about meeting, and I forgot the person who did the interview, but it might say even SoundCloud or something. But there's an image there. I don't know if you can get the image and save it and whatnot from there, but you should be able to see it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out. I may make.
I mean, if people see it, they're gonna be stricken by it. Like I already got reactions just behind it. Like you said, they didn't know who Dr. Wilson and Ani was, but when you see that picture,
I've been trying to push the idea that there is a lot of our people who are scientific, who are scientists on counter racism. It's enough of them out there that we can, quote unquote, tap into, gain some knowledge based on the information that they have painstakingly, like herself and Mr. Fuller, and there's even more that has taken the painstaking time over 30, 40, 50 years. That's available to us, more so than the people that we generally see on the main, quote unquote, mainstream airways and whatnot that are available. Some still alive, some are not, but nevertheless, the information is there. The information is there that can really, better enlighten us personally on understanding the system of racism and white supremacy.
I was going to say, you want to, if you, the type of young person that will want to go into broadcasting or radio or anything like that, and you want to you pretty much know that you have to get them in there somehow, and they're going to have to work with you to get in there. They're going to have to use their money. They're going to have to work for it if it's what they really want. But the thing is, it's like we can't be fooling ourselves. The kind of person that they have to be, they're going to have to know about racism, white supremacy. And at the same time, they're going to have to know that they can't just go in there and start talking about, racism, white supremacy, or anything like that, if they want to stay in there. So that's a combo that you gotta teach them, and you gotta let them know some of the things that they maybe they shouldn't say. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I heard the name of Gil Scott-Heron on the program today, and he had a famous saying: "The revolution would not be televised." And there's a lot of truth to that saying, for various reasons. White people are not going to commit suicide and just give up their powerful position in the system of racism, white supremacy. And one thing that I think about some of those people that I mentioned, that what they provide for a listener, because I've used, through experimentation, I've used a lot of the things that I learned from them with other non-white people, and it's amazing how people will come back to you in times like this and say, on how accurate you were or whatever, stuff like that. And I'm saying to myself, about me, this stuff I learned from listening to this program, learned from Dr. Welsing and Mr. Fuller, who I met December 7th, 1990. And that's where that stuff comes from. That's where those things come from. It doesn't really come from me. I remember Mr. Fuller saying years ago that we need to get on a level with the understanding the system of racism, white supremacy, to whereas we actually, the counter racists can actually predict what is going to happen on things, such as a Trayvon Martin incident decision or whatever, things like that, and I think he's correct in saying that. It's that it's a constant practice that one has to do, and it goes from the ears to the mouth to the feet. Also, it doesn't just stop at what you hear and say. It goes to what you do, and that keeps you from being frustrated. I think that's one reason why they have been around for so long. The frustration is there, but they're able to work through it. And that's something that I, work towards to try to duplicate. And I hear it on this program a lot too.
I don't know. Gus talks about, like, he's saying that we should do our best, right? As far as whatever we have talents in, that we should try to take it to the highest level. And of course, that's for the young people too, So if they decide, like, if they want to be broadcasters or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we gotta give them that opportunity,
Right.
If they want to build bicycles or whatever, like, we can't just say, I don't know, Dr. Wilson might disagree, but I don't know, the opportunity, maybe they could do something with it. Like, would they develop that talent and become good at broadcasting, shooting video, editing, whatever, then they could put out some type of material. Because it don't take long. People think, like, they get in there and get they're doing, editing and do editing and all that already. So if they can do something on a level and learn something and make it about racism, that probably is a good thing, I mean, to say somebody might think it's just a waste of time to want to make movies, but if it's about racism and they got talent and they develop it on a high level, man, it probably be pretty powerful.
I can see that taking place. Somebody needs to help me with this name. Am I correct by saying that Mr. Randall Robinson is he a known non-white black male that's a journalist?
He's a professor and an author. Black male.
Okay, because it's been circulating around a interview that he had. He's like he looks to be like in his 60s, between 60s and 70s. Randall Robinson. I remember he had a brother that also was a journalist that died.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we're talking about the same person. I mean, he definitely seems to me that he is a lot less confused. There's a dynamic interview on him where he's talking about racism and white supremacy. I mean, has he been on your program? I don't know for sure.
He has not. I think you are talking about Randall Robinson. It's got to be because he does.
Yeah,
his brother is Max.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah, his brother is Max Robinson. His brother's deceased though, but his brother ran into, much like our guest J.R. Valrey, he was on television. He ran into a lot of problems with racism. He was trying to, like Mr. Valrey, he was trying to talk about it. He was trying to point out what white people were doing, and they did the same thing. They Voltron hammered his career. He ended up dying early. His brother, Randall Robinson, who's still alive, he's a professor. He's written many books. He's written extensively about Haiti and lots of books on racism, Leaving America. That's another one. The Debt, lots of books that are all on racism. I don't know which video or which interview you're talking about. I know he did one on C-SPAN earlier this year. That's 3 hours.
That's the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I saw that one. That one is phenomenal. Bruce Fein told me about that one. That's the one I made a video clip from it, where he has the white guy was reading a section from his book where he was saying that he is left with a feeling of disgust with regards to white people, and he said, "Yep, he co-signs on it."
That's right. I remember hearing that.
I said, "Yep, absolutely. I feel the same way, and I have an infinite amount of disgust for Amy Goodman." But yeah, Randall Robinson, you should be able to check that on Book TV. It's from, I think, like February of this year.
Right. See, that potential, that potential is in a lot of young people that I've been around, and I'm just one person, and I know it's there. What doesn't happen enough is the encouragement. Younger people look for encouragement. If they are encouraged to do certain things and saying that, hey, go ahead and do it. Then that right there, is the inspiration that a lot of young people should get, and if they do get it, it really it's like putting fertilizer on grass. It's like putting fertilizer on grass, as far as that's concerned. And the potential is there. And I was just using Mr. Robinson because I look at him as being a journalist. He's a historian and probably a lot of other things that he. And they're just tools. They're just tools that a person who is inspired, who is a patient, who is willing to work hard, would use as a tool to come up with something complete that is helpful to themselves and others. And I can see that taking place. I can see that taking place. Go for it. Go for it.
Amen.
Okay. I mean, if they're gonna it's before I retired, I spent a great deal of time, talking to younger people before I retired from this job that I was on, and the bottom line is they can fire us anytime they want, but make it tough for them. Make it tough for them. Give them something to fire you for. With a drug charge or whatever, that's the easiest situation. But go for it, man. Whatever your inspiration is.
Mm-hmm. Do your best. Do your best. That works against the system of white supremacy. Right. We have done our 3 hours. We should be back a little bit later in the week. We are guest doing a brand new book this Friday. The voting is not complete. As I said last week, at least right now, the 2 leading vote getters are Alex Huxley, Brave New World, Warmth of Other Suns. The author's name escapes me, but it is a black female. Warmth of Other Suns, explicitly about racism, white supremacy. Brave New World is kind of like sci-fi. It's in the same vein as 1984 for people who haven't read it. I was a little surprised, but that book was mentioned before, Brave New World. It was mentioned before. It is very popular. A lot of people had to read. I had to read it in school. I don't know if they still. That's one of the top ones that's required, but I had to read it in school. At any rate, those are the top 2 vote getters right now. So if you are not interested in reading either of those 2, then I would encourage you to vote for other books and to get other people to vote for those other books if you don't want to do either of those 2. I will try and tabulate everything by Wednesday. If you want to vote via email, untiljustice@gmail.com. You can put the book title in the subject. That would be helpful, so I know. And then you can just in the body, if you have anything else related to your suggestion, feel free. But those are just the 2 top vote getters right now. Brave New World, Warmth of Other Suns. We'll finish it by Wednesday, so vote between now and Wednesday, and I'll announce whichever book we're starting on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. The book club, brand new book starting this Friday. I'll let you all know in 2 days which book we will begin. Our guest for the program, again, apologies, I wish he'd got a chance to sign off on his own, anything he wanted to get out before we concluded, but we had some strange interference at an integral time as well. But our guest again, J.R. Valrey. Pleasure to have him on the program. You can visit sfbayview.com, sfbayview.com. He writes there, and they have just a lot of great information there, particularly folks in the California area should definitely check it out. And then also Block Report Radio. Excellent information. Check it out. It is linked at the sfbayview.com site. If you are not interested in doing all that, simple blockreportradio.com. You can visit the archives. I would encourage folks to dig in, find that interview with Dr. Jared Ball, Cowbell, to get the broadcast where they discussed Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman, Racist Suspect. Definitely more non-white people need to just be very clear about that. This is a pattern of behavior of her just bringing on non-white guests to bash individual black people and black people collectively. I would encourage folks, you can also go back and hear that program. I played a sound clip on the compensatory call-in where she was talking about that new documentary film, The New Black, and suggesting that black people are homophobic and are mistreating black homosexuals and gay people, maybe even so-called transgender people as well. I would view that as an act of racism on the part of a white person. I don't think that she's telling the truth, and I think this is just propaganda. I look at it for what it is. In my view, what she's doing, she is a 21st century Joseph Goebbels. That's what I think of when I think of Amy Goodman. You can read my Facebook page to see what I said, what else I had to say. The white people, they can sit around and pray that President Obama dies. I have those same prayers for Amy Goodman. Soon, 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 soon. I don't want her to be around for a long time. I want her to be off the plantation soon. Racist suspect. I think she's doing heavyweight work. And I think that for Pacifica, all of the radio stations. I mean, that's what racist man, racist woman, racist child, that's what they're about. At any rate, we will be back. You can check the Facebook page for the updates. See if we will be back before next week. I know Dr. Shahzad Ali, I think she was on CNN today. I know she had been on quite a few other stations since the Trayvon Martin decision, or Dr. Drew. I don't watch Dr. Drew and all that stuff, but I know she had been doing some different panels, and they had been doing the same thing, getting non-white people on so they could set them up and have them bickering, and then the white people can sit back and laugh and get their jokes in. I had contacted her, and she said she would be down to come back and chat with us again, so I'm going to try and bring this up at that point. And I think some of the listeners were saying that the white people were putting up a page and mocking her on Facebook, the very same white people where she was going on their program, that these white people were making all sorts of little snide remarks and what have you. I think this is on my Facebook page, facebook.com/The Problem Is White People. It should be one of the more recent posts where the listener, she had put up some of the just tacky comments that they were making. And importantly, the white people that are inviting her to be on their program, these same white people at this station are the ones who are putting up these comments, making little snipey, racist remarks about her. And the listener was saying she didn't think that Dr. Ali knew about this, and she wanted to make sure that was brought to her attention before she goes back on these racists program. But we'll see if we can make that out for next week. She said she'd be down. We're going to try and shoot for next Wednesday. I think it's at the 31st. Yeah, next Wednesday. But just stay tuned. We should be back. Remain constructive. Hug a black person, seeming like, black people, some of them, many of them still feeling a little down about the verdict and everything. Try to correct that. Tell people be not discouraged. Give them a hug, pat on the back, some encouragement, some constructive words. Just, hey, stay motivated. White people are going to continue to do this. We have to be motivated. We always talk about our ancestors. This should be time to remember that many of our ancestors had to endure a lot of ugliness that we could not even fathom. And they found the resolve, they found the will to get up and continue on. We talk about Minister Malcolm, his grandson. We talk about how much he inspired us. One moment I will never forget, you can hear the audio, the night after his house was firebombed. He didn't sit around and wallow and whine and complain about how hard life is, and I can't believe this happened to my family, and life is so hard, and what are we going to do? He caught a plane, he went to Detroit, and he gave a lecture on racism, white supremacy. He was hoarse. You can hear it in the recording from standing outside, and he even explains, if you want some inspiration, if anybody needs some encouragement, why you cannot be discouraged, why you can't just be sad because you're upset about what happened, go get that audio clip. I don't think your day has been that tough. I don't think anybody on this call can say, yeah, they firebombed my house and I had to stand outside all night last night. And I don't think any of us had to do that.
That's true.
Get your inspiration, get your courage, get your resolve from our ancestors. Channel their spirit. They will help you to get through this. We still have an assignment. Be a soldier. Man up, woman up, be a soldier. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Context of white supremacy. Signing out. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
I'm a victim, brother.
No problem.
A victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.